like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting on April 3rd, 2025. I'd like to welcome everyone being here tonight. We'll open up with open remarks and a pledge by Nate Dowds.
I'll give my opening remarks in the form of a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the many blessings thou hast bestowed upon us and the opportunity we have to live in this great country and great state where we have the freedoms to work together and decide how we grow and change as a community. Bless us as we go over these matters tonight, that we'll have civility and insight of how we should vote on different matters. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. You please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Has everyone been able to look at the agenda and review it? Any questions?
The only possible concern we have is the timing between the public hearings. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Last month we had some challenges.
Okay.
And then I just also mentioned that on this revised agenda you have removed item number 2 from the consent to regular, but that didn't get posted on the public notice website, so I just wanted to go over it here. So it has been revised here in the posting and 3 different places.
Okay.
Okay, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, a second. Anyone second that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any questions about last meeting's minutes? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we accept the minutes last month's meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the first item, consent item, is Wendren Ranch subdivision. Connor, if you'd lead us through that.
Yeah. So it's a request to create a 5-lot subdivision on 53 acres in the A10 zone. Lot 1 will be 26 acres, Lot 2 will be 5.5, Lot 3 will be 5.5, and Lot 4 will be 5.5, and Lot 5 will be 9. The parcel does not match the configuration out in 2006, but still legal because it's just gone through a couple boundary line adjustments. Has adequate water rights. The access is from 4,000 west and 4,000 south. 4,000 west is going to be a minor local. It has an existing width of 20 feet, a variable right-of-way, no paved shoulder, 2-foot gravel shoulder, and a variable clear zone. It's considered substandard as to right-of-way, gravel shoulder, and clear zone. 4,000 south, it's minor local. It's not going to be the primary access to the subdivision, so there's not any new requirements for it. The applicant will have to work with Cache County Fire District in the time when they start building on those lots. The applicant will have to work with waste management. Sensitive areas, there is liquefaction present on the parcel, but the applicant handed me a geotech right before the meeting, so. And notices, it was posted online in 3 public places on the 24th of March, and they were mailed out on the 21st of March. And at this time, no written comments have been received.
Okay. Commissioners, any thoughts or questions on this?
No, with it being a consent item, I'd move to accept that, recommend it, with the 12 conditions and 2 conclusions.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item, regular action item, is the agriculture protection area. Francis?
Yeah, so we have one of our members of Development Services, Aaron Thaxton, who will present this item.
Okay.
Hi, Commission. My name is Aaron Thaxton. I'm the planning tech over at the Development Services Office, so I'm the one who did this application. So I'll take it. So essentially, this is a request to create a new agricultural protection area, which consists of 3 parcels and 64.12 acres. Per the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, the agricultural protection areas provide legal protection for agricultural land uses and activities. They also provide notice to neighboring landowners that they border the APA or agricultural protection area and should expect normal agricultural activities to take place. The application comes to Planning Commission as part of the review process. Commission is meant to comment on it, and then they recommend their approval to the county council, who is the ultimate deciding entity on this. 3 parcels have remained in the same configuration since 2006. Parcels are located north and adjacent to the Logan Cache Airport and are all 3 zoned A10. The area is accessed from 3400 north on parcel 424 and 6. Parcels 426-1 and 426 and 4 do not have frontage along any county road. As part of the review, they are reviewed in accordance with State Code Section 17-41-305 and County Code Sections 2.70, and has met the following criteria. They are greater than 5 acres in size. That is the minimum acreage requirement. It's currently being used for agricultural production. It is zoned for agricultural use, and it's viable for future agricultural production. The parcel has historically been used for agricultural purposes, such as cattle grazing and crop production, and will continue to function so in a similar manner throughout the future. The notices were sent to the Agricultural Protection Area Advisory Board on February 6, 2025. No response has been received as of today. Notices were also posted online in the Herald Journal and in 5 public places on February 6, 2025. We also mailed notices to all property owners within 1,000 feet on February 6, 2025, and only 1 public comment has been received at this time. So in conclusion, we recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval to County Council for this application.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just one, go ahead. My quick question was, I think originally, wasn't this a consent item?
Yes.
So if you guys explain why that was changed, I missed it. Could you just share one more time why this wouldn't be a consent item in the future?
Excuse me, it's because we looked over the code again, and the last time we did one of these was 2019, by the way, so we don't do it a lot. But in reading the code, it said provide an opportunity for the planning commission to receive a report, make any comments back. So that's why we decided just to take it off, knowing it would be a quick item, but that was the reason.
So you mentioned that there had been notices to the Agricultural Advisory Board and nothing's been responded, right?
Correct.
Is that normal, or does it seem like that would come back pretty quick, or did we not give them enough time?
They have 45 days to respond to us, and they've just never sent any email back or anything from us. So I don't think they did in 2019 either. I think there was no response received. I can't exactly remember, I wasn't here.
Angie,
Yeah, they do have the 45 days per code to respond, so.
send them a letter and ask them to give us a response on some of these in a more friendly manner?
Yeah, and again, we're not exactly sure what form that board is taking right now, or if they're.
That's what I was gonna say, do we even know who that is anymore, or?
Yeah, we have a list that we got from the state website, for ag protection areas, for advisory boards, for district.
Yeah, I thought they did review that, so that they were.
It's just disappointing, that especially to be in a protection
Yeah,
zone.
I'm wondering if it's going to an email or something that nobody even,
No, we sent them.
We sent a physical copy.
and where did that go to?
Do you
Maybe, we can follow up on that after, yeah, it just seems odd, cause they used to come through those fairly good and be reviewed by them pretty good, so,
have, like I said, we haven't had many, we just have the ones
yeah.
from 2019.
Which is why they should be able to respond if we're not deluging them with.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it was clearly spelled out in the letter, the 45 days and the deadline. And we did not get it returned.
I just like to see these and like to see them give us public support and everything else. That's why I like the letter for it. So.
And maybe by their silence, they're supporting.
Maybe.
But yeah, they were,
Is there any other comments? Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the agriculture protection area, Francis.
We'll
Yes.
recommend approval, right, to the council, county council?
The county
What?
council.
Yeah.
Do we have to on that one?
Yep, on these we do.
Okay. I'd move then that we recommend approval of that ag protection zone, the Francis agriculture protection area, to the county council for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll now have a public hearing for the Yonk Homestead rezone. Honor, if you want to run us through that one.
Alright, so this is the Yonk Homestead rezone. A little bit of background on this one. The parcel currently has split zoning. The northern portion, which is about 75 acres, is currently in the agricultural zone, while the southern portion, which is about 80 acres, is in the forest recreation zone. So essentially, it's a request to rezone the southern portion from the forest recreation zone to the A10 zone, so the parcel is completely in the A10 zone. Should the rezone request be approved, the maximum number of lots will be 15. The parcel is legal as it matches the configuration at August 8, 2006. Approved uses in the agricultural zone includes a single-family dwelling, foster home, accessory apartment, home-based business, residential living facilities, agricultural manufacturing, home-based kennel, cemetery, crematorium, religious meeting house, concentrated animal feed operation, livestock auction facility, farm stand, winery, boarding facility, and topsoil extraction. Adjacent uses to the north and south are a mix of agricultural and residential, and to the east is a mix of commercial and agricultural, and then forest recreation is to the west. The nearest parcel in the county, not including the subject parcel that's in the A10 zone, is directly to the east. Using aerial imagery, it also appears that the forest recreation zone portion of the lot or parcel has been in agricultural production. The earliest image I could find was 1993, but that's still a pretty good chunk of time. Future land use, the property is located inside of Mendon's annexation area. The Cache County General Plan identifies this area as mountain, rural, and conservation. The location of these areas is the majority of privately owned mountain and foothill areas. Example areas includes the FR40 zone and that is not public land. Purpose and character, forestry, recreation, and multiple resource uses on private land. Forestry and recreation land uses are expected to continue. Maintaining the environmental quality of steep slopes, canyons, and forests with minimal residential development conserves watershed resources and improves resiliency from wildfire, geological, and flood hazards. Preferred land uses includes forestry, agriculture, conservation easements, conserved public lands, watershed protection, hazard mitigation, specifically floodplain management, steep slopes, and high wildfire hazard areas, outdoor recreation and tourism. Secondary land uses include seasonal residential housing at 1 unit per 40 acres, clustered subdivision developments, resorts, recreation business, and public institutions. Discouraged land uses includes residential development at a density greater than 1 unit per 40 acres, industrial, commercial office, commercial retail, and heavy industrial. The nearest road is 8000 West. It's classified as major local, and it's maintained by the county year-round. Currently has a paved width of 20 feet, a 66-foot right-of-way, a 2-foot paved shoulder, a variable gravel shoulder, and a variable clear zone. It's currently considered substandard as a gravel shoulder and clear zone. Cache County Fire District had no comments, and the applicant will have to work with Waste Management for solid waste disposal. The notice was posted online in the 3 public places on March 24th, and notices were mailed to surrounding property owners on March 21st. This time, no comments have been received, and we've not made a recommendation, but we'll help the commission draft a letter to county council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Colin?
I have some.
Okay.
So, in the past, we've talked about forest recreation coming into A10, and we've always asked that there be some agricultural evidence. What did you find that proved that this had been an agricultural use?
So when you look at the staff report, let me see, pull it up real quick.
I just want to make sure we're fair in this decision.
Yeah.
We've done on others.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like I said, I did use Google Earth, and basically this is what I saw. So this is the same parcel. As you can see here, you have what looks like a field in 1993. So this is the A10 portion. And so that field is still in active use, and I think this is what, spring of 2024. And then same thing here, this is the FR40 portion. You can see a field that's agricultural production. And then that field is still there in 2024. So it's been in use for at least 30 years, around 30 years.
But of that parcel that, well, I guess it's all the same parcel, 1249.012.
It looks a little weird on the map, but it's the same parcel.
What percentage of the total acreage, I mean, on the south parcel, I don't know, maybe half? On the north parcel, kind of hard to tell.
North parcel mode. Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with both those pieces. They've been in dryland production for a long time.
Yeah, they cut hay off.
Long time. Yeah. Yeah, years ago it would have been Wheaton. Some of it's been in
Yeah.
CRP for a while, so it's been in production for quite a long time.
But-
Even everything down along the road is in crop production down here, all that's.
I just was thinking back to, we've had quite a few of these come in, but the two that stand out in my mind, the Sardine Canyon, when I still remember Lane, there was 800 acres there and maybe 80 at the base that had been farmed. And then another one was up in Richmond, and portion of that was farmable, but, well, then it seems like we've had a few, one in Wellsville, one in Mount Sterling. We've been pretty consistent on,
Yep, that's why I'm asking to make sure we're proving there's agricultural use before changing that zone.
Yes, it is. Down there.
All right, any questions, concerns before we open up to public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll open it up for a public hearing. If you come up and state your name, and just, we'll keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Reed Young, representative today for Petersburg Properties. Mostly just that, for some reason, a long time ago, it's been in our family for over 100 years. And it's always been a section of a forestry. Sometimes they tell us it's A10 and they tell us it's forestry, so we're just trying to get it all straightened out. That's the main reason why we're doing it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah. I'll make a motion, we close the,
hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, commissioners?
That looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, it does.
Just move into approval.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have a motion?
I just wanted to add one thing. My only concern is, again, on those maps, it doesn't appear that 100% of it is farmable, especially on the south portion. And my only concern is, I'm not aware of another one of these that we've, even that one up there in Sardine, we didn't break it down into 10 acres. They kept it at the FR 40. So we kind of set a precedence. Again, if it meets the ag and it's the A10 and it is being farmed, I don't have a problem with that. But on like this south piece, if we open that whole thing up, are we intending to do that? Or do we want to just keep it to the farmable land?
Well, I think it's, I don't know if we can split it parcel into only part of it, right? It's the whole parcel's one
The
zoning.
entire?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a weird situation that got it to where it's at.
It looks like a majority of it's farm ground.
Yeah, I think over half of it would.
Nolan, what's your thoughts on it? Are you?
I'm aligning with you because we felt pretty stiff in the Sardine Canyon area. I mean, even though they said they had ranged it at times, but there was no proof on that. But Nate and Lane seemed to have some background on that where we didn't have before, so.
Just one other consideration, because A10 does not take out developable area for sensitive areas any longer. The total acreage on both of the sections would be 155, so total potential of 15 lots under the A10 without taking away any steep slopes. That's information as well.
So is there any percentage-wise of what's farmed on that? I mean,
Well, you could pull up a quick map, but
Well, that south one,
Yeah, they
in my opinion, is looking like, I don't know, it's hard to say, but it looks like about 50. This one here really doesn't bother me, but I'm concerned more, what precedence does this set? Because the one up in Richmond had some farmable ground too, but it wasn't even considered. It was FR 40 and we're not gonna open that.
What percentage was farm ground?
God, I can't really remember. The parcel that they wanted was tied to the farmland, but it was above it, and it was in the same parcel, if I recall. But because it was a split piece, it was like the lower portion was in A10, and then the upper portion was FR 40, where they actually wanted to redevelop it. But if you guys don't think it's gonna, I support it if you don't feel it's gonna be a future problem, but as we look at the perimeter of our county, it's mostly, I mean, it's, the only one I could think of is we're gonna talk to them tonight too, Powder Mountain. But because of the way that's all come together. But I just worry about the precedents that somebody else could say you proved that one, so.
Yeah,
But if we're okay with the acreage, I'll
right,
go
yeah.
with what you guys feel. Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a recommendation to approve this Yonk Homestead rezone to the county council.
I have that you already have Parker.
Oh, all right, I'll second it then.
Yeah, I have US, the Birch, and
Okay.
US is second.
So
I'll
we're
second.
receiving a second, okay, all in
I'm
favor?
good. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next one is a public hearing for the Powder Mountain Development Agreement. Connor, if you can take us through that?
Number one.
Yeah, so this is the Powder Mountain Development Agreement for a maintenance shop. This development agreement is specific to this project and does not resolve any restricted properties or non-compliant structures. As a bit of history, in 2024, a development agreement was submitted to the county to allow for the construction of 2 ski lifts. This development agreement was finalized and those lifts were finished a little bit later that year. Then in late 2024, the applicant submitted a master plan and rezone request. Just per code, the rezone request had to be completed before the official start of the review of the master plan. And then in early 2025, the rezone request was approved and the official review of the master plan has started. The applicant was concerned about the construction season and they wanted to see if they could get some certain structures in. And so they were presented with 3 options on how to proceed. It's basically just wait for the master plan to get approved, enter into a development agreement, or do an ordinance amendment. So the applicant decided to apply for a development agreement. This agreement is restricted to just the maintenance structure, so like I said, it doesn't go to anything beyond the maintenance structure. Should the applicant not obtain a building permit within 2 years of approval, it terminates and it's just over. And then the county will issue required permits, just as part of it. And so in terms of notices were posted to the public notice website in 3 locations on March 24th, and they were mailed to surrounding property owners on the 26th. By the time of writing this report, we had 4 written public comments specific to this project, and quite a few more that were general. When I wrote this summary, we had 23, and when I left the office, we had 28, so it's going up. Staff hasn't made a recommendation, but we'll help Planning Commission draft a letter to County Council.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners?
How many acres is that actually then encompassed then if we?
Is it just
Well,
that?
at least pulling up those 2 parcels that are impacted. I mean, obviously it doesn't impact the entire Summit Holding parcel, but it's mainly on that one that's listed as
The key to investments.
yeah. Which, yes, as you can see, is under a different ownership currently, but Powder Mountain has finalized, I believe, the real property transfer on that, so they do own it, but you can see where the existing, maintenance shed is, just below that parcel.
Yeah.
And I think, is it taking the exact place, or do you push it a little bit behind? Yeah, so, Brooke Hunts from Powder Mountain can provide more explanation, but yeah, it'll be in a similar, position as that, be just offset a bit. And I just wanted to touch on all of the emailed public comments. We provided those in a folder for you on the Google Share Drive. And I just wanted to point out that they all are basically the same comments, just sent from different folks. But there is just, I think, a misunderstanding that part of the Resort Recreation Code, because of state law, is no longer applicable. I also put in your folder this old Appendix A that's referred to in code about the process. So it says rezone subject property RR, so we've completed that on the Powder Mountain properties. The next step says process the master plan and sign a development agreement. You can actually put a big line through and sign a development agreement on that. State law changed so that if there is an administrative or regulatory code already in place, we can't add on additional things. So that master plan becomes that regulatory administrative code. It's not done yet, which allows us the opportunity to do this other process of these development agreements. outside of that code to allow for a couple special projects while we continue to work through the master plan. And I believe that a lot of the people who have written in have seen that because, yeah, unfortunately, our code is not updated to remove that section. But they believe that is the part where we would be able to put in a lot of restrictions or extract certain allowances from the developer, but that is not the case. This will just all be processed since the rezone as an administrative act. So if it meets the code, we can mitigate any negative impacts reasonably with conditions, then that becomes the template to move forward to review each of the subsequent development plan applications. It is confusing, I admit, and but again, a lot of the things that people were demanding in those letters are not things that we would be able to extract anyway, including lower ticket fees, year-round access, things of that nature. But the one thing that they do have, and Brooke can talk this through on the other development agreement request, is the trails and art path will be open during the summer for free public access. So I just wanted to address that before we got too far, and if you have any questions on those particular comments right now.
Mr. Chairman, I do. What's your thoughts on Paradise City's concerns?
Again, I think they raised the same ones and brought in that section of the 1714 that's no longer applicable.
Because of the recreation,
Right.
resort recreation.
Because of the resort recreation zone and the changes to code that don't let us apply that 1714-40 section anymore on development agreements. And so that's why we are having a bit of a struggle working through the master plan process. Like, how much do we require at the beginning, since we don't have that development agreement part to fall back on to specify specific things. So that's why we're trying to maybe front load as much as possible in the master plan, so we have a clear record and the intent is clear about how we want it to develop. And so if you just look at what's part of the master plan currently, it's pretty concept level because it was intended that that development agreement would kind of fill in all those holes. Since that's no longer applicable, we're trying to just flesh out that master plan process better and get a better understanding of what the subsequent development plan application process are for that. But that, again, is all going to be administrative, but since that master plan hasn't, for lack of a better word, codified what they're going to be doing in the future, there is no administrative code right now that regulates them. Because our zone is kind of a menu of different options depending on the type of development, but until we get it into a master plan as to what specifically they're doing, we really don't have anything to apply. So that's what allows them to go through this development agreement process.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Angie, I got one more couple questions for you, just for staff. I struggled a little bit hearing and understanding 100% of what you were saying, but maybe in just a couple sentences. So from staff and legal standpoint, a lot of these guys are suggesting, pause, let's make sure this is all together before we rush and approve it. What is staff's, what is you guys' opinion as you know this, studied it, legal, whatever else? What do you feel about it as we listen to these people?
I believe that, there is a bit of a struggle, and I sent an email to the chair of the council last night that, nobody likes doing this by piecemeal, development agreement. Bit by bit. One, development agreement, there's a lack of reliability for the developer because it is legislative. You absolutely have the option of recommended denial, and the county council can deny it as well. Two, yeah, for staff, it's difficult for us to assess impacts when we're just looking at these pieces instead of looking at the whole picture. And then for the private property, that doing what's best for the county and its citizens and private property rights, it's a whole different. It's very difficult to balance. That's why the master plan makes more sense. However, given the short construction timelines that they have up there. It makes sense if we want to make sure the master plan has a thorough review and is done right, that we take the time on that part and maybe consider some of these specific projects that they can do while we're working through the master
master plan really is then?
We're still working through some stuff. I meant to send out an email update last week, and I do apologize. They have met with UDOT, and they can speak to more of that, but yeah, they are revising their traffic impact study, so that might require some revisions to, the master plan itself, because they want to take out some impacts, because they're not gonna do as much commercial as the initial traffic impact study, had suggested. So there's different things like that, but yeah, I still think we're still a few months away, I would say. Just make sure everything's in place, and like I said, trying to decide that balance of how much needs to be front-loaded, since we don't have that development agreement part of the code that allows us to be more specific as to what would be required. And then, yeah, figuring out the process for that development plan application, which is kind of like a mini conditional use permit process where each time they come in with a site plan to develop.
Chair, any questions?
I-
Are you done?
Well, I'll just have one more question in conjunction with Lane was asking. So obviously these next three requests through, well, we're almost to the third public hearing timeframe right now, but from staff standpoint, obviously there's buildings, there's stuff up there. In you guys' opinion and working with this, has everything been met, requirements been met? Has things been satisfactory up till now?
Yeah, and like I said, I think my main concern on this one is just that the property ownership doesn't show that it's changed yet, so I have some concerns, just relying on what Powder Mountains told me about that transaction, because we don't have anything in writing from that particular property. Oh, they did? Okay, never mind, I stand corrected. So I guess that has gone away, that issue, but yeah, they've generally been good partners with just kind of developing these specific projects without expanding or overreaching what they were approved for.
Okay, so I have quite a few questions. Legal, get ready. I was against the development agreement at first when it came in, and now we're being told the development agreement has really no teeth in it, right?
We're talking about two different development agreements.
Okay, but, and I understand that this is private property that they own, and I understand and respect private property rights. I also understand we have a window of weather in there, but here we are at April, when the weather's starting to break, and we're now talking about this, when this should have been talked about in October, November, so we had time to roll it through and understand the master plan. But the concern is any private citizen who came in here and wanted a subdivision, we'd say no way until everything is there and going. And I have a hard time saying, okay, but in this instance, we're gonna let this go and this go because of time constraints. Everybody that comes before the council or the planning commission has time constraints because we're all facing the same weather. It's a little bit different because of that area, but as I sat through all of this, and I sit on the planning and zoning as a liaison, and I sit on the council, to me, it was, let's rezone this, and then the master plan will guide and direct us. We're not getting guide and direction from the master plan because it's not here, but yet we've got these three things that are coming before us to say, let's let these go, but we haven't got the master plan. And I have a heartache about that we're saying, okay, yes, this needs to go. So from my standpoint, I really think we need to hold fast and true that the master plan is there, so we really have an idea, because there's parts in that master plan as a council, and I'm sitting here saying, okay, we haven't got fireworks agreement, not fireworks, but fire protection agreement, or any of those other things out there that we don't know that are part, and a big part of this master plan. So if legal could describe to me the development agreement and how that allows us to go forth, but yet how it steps in to the master plan, I would like to understand that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'll see if I can break it down.
Make it simple, because I
Okay.
got that.
So under county code, for their RR zone, they submit that process as all rezoned for resort recreation. And they have to submit a master plan for what they propose to do for the development. And as part of what is currently under county code, like Andrew's saying, after approval of master plan, you do development agreements. That part was axed based on some updates under state code. Now, so Powder Mountain has submitted their which talks specifically about development agreements, and what Powder Mountain is going under right now is that, hey, I'll read the language here, this portion under it says, a development agreement cannot allow a use or development of land that applicable land use regulations govern the area subject to the development agreement or otherwise prohibited. So basically what happens is you can't go submit this application because you have county codes that govern what's gonna happen here. Unless, going back to the language here, unless the legislative body approves the development agreement in accordance with the same procedures for enacting the land use regulation under section 1727A502, including a review and recommendation from the planning commission and a public hearing. So basically what that's getting at is, hey, they've submitted the master plan, or the master plan under Frederick County Code. That's taken a little bit longer. And so they want to pursue this option that's allowable under state code for a specific development agreement for these three specific projects they want to do. But to do that process, you have to go through what they're doing right now. Come before you as the planning commission and get a recommendation, and then go to the council for approval, which is a May approves. So there's no, it's discretionary. It's if you want to make whatever recommendation you want, the council can make whatever and can approve it or they can disapprove it. I don't know if that answers the question or not. That's my.
Well, it just drills me in further, because they're talking about a maintenance shed. And in the maintenance shed, you put all kinds of things that I sit and wonder, we don't have an agreement as far as fire protection and what's going on in there. Okay, bike pass and trail pass, I'm not gonna freak out about. But when it comes to maintenance, and I'm sitting here in both capacities saying, okay, we don't have a master agreement. We really don't understand where we're headed with fire protection, and yet we're asking to approve a maintenance shed, which in my view, has the potential for a great fire. So we haven't answered that situation before we answer what protects that. It just seems we are letting something roll ahead of what we need to do for the understanding of our master plan. And I understand what Powder Mountain's against because of time frame. But at the same time, these guys are part-time workers. They don't have all the time to put in there that like Powder Mountain does. And our development office is somewhat short-staffed. So it's a situation that I mean, the letters that have come to me have been volumes. I mean, you talk 28, I'm getting to be a voracious reader just because I get too many emails, and I find there's a lot more entertaining things to read sometimes, so. I'm just wanting to be careful. The pause section that I got from some of the citizens, because citizens are here tonight, and I think they're wondering how we direct this and what we go. And I think it's important to prove to our citizens that we are holding the standards to what we as a county need to do so that we check that. And that's my point, so.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is this was driven and started by a request from the developer. So it was an application process. We're just processing that request and application. So I don't believe we made staff recommendations on it, but yeah, we did go ahead and just process it based on.
And this is all new, and that's why when we sat through the development agreement, I sat on the planning and zoning for 15 years and had never seen anything, and that's why I said, okay, I need to understand this more. Here's these guys that are part-time, and I just want to open up and then let them understand and be thoroughly vetted that this isn't, I mean, some point there's pressure because it's like, hey, we got time, we got weather, we got to do this.
Right.
But at some point you have to say the checks and balances have to be here before we succumb to pressure because of weather and what other parts are coming in from the master plan. So.
And I don't disagree with any of that.
But I'm elected and I want to represent the citizens who have contacted me about that, and I think they have some good points. I know that Powder Mountain has good points too, but time needs to happen so that this is done right. So that's my point. So
Appreciate it. Any other comments?
Well, the master plan isn't in place because county and different entities have not been able to give approval on their parts of the master plan.
Yeah, it's still, in our opinion, there are still pieces that are incomplete, so it's not possible to do a full review. And as I mentioned with UDOT, and they've met with the fire district as well about where to locate the fire building, because they're actually going to do that sooner rather than later. But they haven't come to an agreement on that yet either. But yeah, so there's just some moving pieces still that we haven't nailed down in order to really
do a comprehensive review yet, so.
But if we give this approval and develop, they can start on a maintenance shop.
They could, yeah, file for a zoning clearance and get a building permit for maintenance shop.
That's a recommendation to the county council.
Right, I mean, but that's, yeah.
But right, it is legislative, you have a lot of discretion in coming to a decision. Whereas if and when the master plan gets approved, as long as they're meeting that code and all of the requirements, it'll be just like our typical conditional use permit project process where as long as they meet the requirements or those can be mitigated through conditions, then it would have to be approved with that, so.
Thank you.
I know we're past the time when we had the public comment scheduled. Doesn't have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing for the
Second that.
okay,
first of the three.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing for regular action item number 4 for the new maintenance building. If you'd like to come up, state your name and keep your comments to about 3 minutes, please.
As the applicant, do I get more time? Or
Yes.
okay, can I please have the presentation brought up? So I appreciate your time tonight. I'm Brooke Hans with Powder Mountain. And the beauty of being on the record, and thank you so much, and having all of this recorded and submittals where we actually have to provide materials to the county and they go on the record is that I can speak with not only with authority, but we can go back in time and we can look at what's transpired and what's actually been shared and said and what we've done. And so I really do appreciate Connor and Angie's comments tonight. They have a slightly different specificity on the applications that we've made. It was under the direction of Dirk Anderson, who I spoke to again 2 days ago. He took time off of his vacation to have a chat. Under his direction and staff's direction that we do submit these applications. And the reason why is some of you might remember, I know Kurt, you're new, but we did in October of 2024, so significantly many months ago, submit a master plan CUP. And it took a lot of work and a lot of consultants to put that really thorough document that is complete together. And so it's been on the record for your availability to review and staff's since October 2nd. But what has happened since that time is we admit there is only one RR zone right now in the county. And so it is an unusual, because it's the only place zoned RR that has the master plan CUP process. And so through talking to council, through talking to your legal counsel, and through talking to your leadership, it was determined that there should be a more collaborative process than is currently described or required by code. And so part of the desire, as what has been described to me from the county leadership, is that let's take the process for the master plan and slow that down. And any of you who are here, and I believe this is accurate, in January when I came, we said then, thank you to the councilman, that we were on a tight time frame and that there were things that were specific to improvements at the resort that I'm going to go through in a second that actually aren't master plan changing elements. They're necessary improvements to bring us up to, whether you want to call it code, in terms of OSHA and safety standards, or other things that make the resort more operable and give people public access. And that's actually one of the things we're here asking for tonight. And so instead of going through the other mechanisms that were provided, we were given the direction, again, by your leadership to come in with a development agreement. And this is because in February, in February, we submitted these 3 development agreements. When I came in October, we said, here we are, we have a master plan. We did a kickoff meeting with you. And then we came back and said, look at the timeline I just had on the screen. We either have to get on the agenda and start talking about the master plan, and that includes all of the collaboration, and here's the timeframes by which that can get done, or we have to come at this a different way. So the different way that was suggested was for the maintenance building, ski lift A, and the non-winter trails, or you can call them summer trails, and features to come in with a development agreement. So the maintenance, you can go check the actual development agreement itself, which is a binding contract. This is the location where it is on the site. Here is a footprint. Now you can see right in front of that, in 1998, Powder Mountain did pay for a building permit through Cache County and received the permit. It is arguable that we could come back today and ask to just demo that and replace it without going through a development agreement process. However, because of the collaboration and the desire for the county to have more process, we've come in under the development agreement. You can see at the bottom of the screen the rectangle, and those little red things are snowcats. That maintenance facility would stay in place until such time that hopefully, if we were given the right to move forward, the new maintenance facility that can do a better job of meeting not only the better standards of taking care of equipment that costs more than $500,000 per piece of equipment to be worked on in a warmer, drier situation. It also gives the employees a place to change clothes, bathrooms, et cetera, that support the services of the resort that currently can't be accommodated in the 1998 structure. So that would be demoed after this was built. And you can see the 3 bays, very, very, very modest structure that we're looking at putting in. So item number 2 is ski lift A. And this is per the master plan. We've shown where all the lifts that we think would ever go in would go. It's highlighted there.
Just one quick question. So if I understand correctly, we've got these in 3 separate hearings.
Yes.
And so are we wanting to combine them all in one?
I think it's better for me at least to explain them all to you really quickly in one. And I think it would be, it's 3 different agreements, but if you wanted to enter, right, make a recommendation separately or as one.
Who's here for this right here? Raise your hand if you're here for this. Not as many as we thought.
I can talk faster.
It's probably more efficient to do it while you're there.
Yeah, just
I don't have,
finish up.
I just figured
apologize.
everybody might be here for this, but at least I was hoping.
Is it okay to continue?
Yes.
Huh?
Is it okay to continue?
I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Okay, I'll go quickly though. So the little blue outline, the cloud, that is to indicate within the master plan where that lift would go. Now, of interest, because then there's all of these layers of process that we've been through.
Can you just point one more time on that? Where is the shed at in relation to the blue?
The shed is it's hard for me
Right
to
there.
even see. Oh, yeah, kind of here. Yeah, right there. See where the cursor is? And I can go back if you want, but.
Okay.
So we're looking to put this lift in. Now, why is this area shaded? You will remember that we came to the county council recently and were awarded the rezone on the 1,620 acres because it was land we had recently purchased. That land, it was private land, had been previously operated most recently as a private ski terrain and hunting terrain, and so that has never had public access, and that will remain in that kind of area that has more restricted access. So that you can see right here, the only portion of it that even clips the kind of the RR zone that was the so-called original is about 300 feet of that. And then this is kind of even more helpful if you're thinking about the entire 5,200 acres, which you can see here, all the way to here, county line, right over here. You can't quite see it, the maintenance, but you can get the idea of the entire property boundary and where that lift would go, and where, if you remember, that light blue color is the extent of the ski terrain. So lastly, we have the non-winter trails and features. We call it non-winter because it's spring, summer, fall, right? Whenever you can access the trails. And these are for public trails and an art installation. So what we're trying to do here is unique that we feel in the ski industry and definitely in North America. And so not only is it a natural dirt trail experience of over 9.2 miles on a loop with various shortcuts and opportunities to have a peaceful hiking experience. But in addition, in some areas, we'd like to do some installations of art. And so currently, if you've been to Powder Mountain this year, there are 2 bells that are hung up that you can kind of ski up to and ring. And some people call them art, some people just, kids call them fun. But those would be types of elements that would be installed on these public hiking trails, which I can show you the entire zone kind of influence of those trails is in that blue zone. And then you can see the 9.2 miles that are shown in the red kind of squiggly line. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the gray line. And then, so that gives you a much better kind of idea of where those are. And so it is interesting that there's conversation about public access to private lands. And it's also interesting that one of the things that we're actually asking to do, which probably would have, I'm not even sure if it would have risen to the level of a CUP under the forestry zone, but in the case of RR, we're asking for it to be considered as part of a development agreement. And so these would get built this summer, and to the extent, if we could, we would then invite people to be able to access them next year. Two important also considerations or pieces of information should be understood. These, because this is all private land and it is surrounded in Cache County by private land, do not extend off of the property. So there's no trail access to other people's properties. That's not anything we're looking to do. It is completely controlled and within our own private property boundary. In addition, I've heard, although I have not seen, that there is some sort of rumor or misinformation floating around about access on a road through Cache County to Powder Mountain. That is in writing in our master plan multiple times. That is not part of our application. It is not part of our future application. We have no interest. We are not involved. I put it in writing. We're committed to that. That's not something we're looking at doing. And so I don't know if that helps clarify it. Although it's not part of any of these development agreements, I thought it might make sense to touch on that since it might be a hot topic, which we're not involved in. With that, I'm happy to take any questions or come back after you hear some more.
So, kind of in concern, okay, so I've been able to, I wasn't really prepared to kind of think about these all in the same deal, but
Okay.
your trails, your buildings in that little half of a, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. And so then your proposed lift is in the extreme top.
Yep. We can go back. I don't know.
Anyhow, up there in the top right corner, but, so, in bringing this back to what Nolan said, yeah, you can easily come get a building permit and everything else, but if you don't have this inner agreement and all this plan stuff done, how does fire and how does roads and how does all that tie together? Because it's one thing to build a building and one thing to build a lift, but how do you get emergency people to your lift? How do you,
Yep.
whatever with your building? So how do you propose or recommend that we allow that without the agreement, without everything together to put it together?
So you do have Fire Marshal Wynn here, who I think it would be excellent to call up to speak to that, because obviously we are currently operational with over 52 years of operations and activities on the site that are getting services from Weber County. So there is interlocal currently happening, at least because the services have to be provided 100% by Weber County. We've been in constant, ongoing communication with Cache County just about how that agreement may look and change going forward, but not in any way in related to how the services are provided now. What we're looking to do is upgrade the service by adding a fire station, but that's not really, in my mind, neither here nor there in terms of the services is already provided, and it's provided by Weber County, and Cache County is involved in the conversation because a portion of the activities, obviously, are happening in Cache County, and Weber has to respond. And so I think the fire marshal could speak to that very clearly since he's here, if you'd like to.
But we still don't know what the county's gonna charge us. Weber County's gonna charge Cache County, right, for those services? That's still in the works in the master plan?
No, so it's a separate, regardless of the master plan, the services have to be, because we're 52 years in existence, we have to have, and services have to be provided. So regardless of what happens with the master plan, there could be cost sharing, there doesn't have to be. At this point, Weber County isn't asking for any money from Cache County.
Okay.
That could change in the future. They've seen your fiscal impact. They know that you're going to make a lot of money off of this project, including the fire district that doesn't provide the services. So therefore, there might be a future ask, but it would be for services that you're not providing.
Mr. Chairman, another question I have. So, yeah, we're aware of those meetings. I still think there was a lot, even from the get-go. And I really commend you for, you've done an amazing job, phenomenal amount of material. It just still seems like from our end, at least personally, this whole thing's just been a rush of stuff that we didn't know all the history, we don't know everything. But I remember at our joint meeting with the council, one thing that was discussed was having a meeting between Cache officials and Weber officials.
Sure.
Has that ever been done?
Well, to my knowledge, it has not.
Why?
Well, I don't think we're
I
the
just was
person to
wondering,
call.
as the applicant, you would obviously be a part of it, but if you knew,
I know
I don't know
that,
who the powers are that would know that, but I just was curious why that hasn't been sought out.
I know that your council chair has reached out to the commission, because they're a different form of government there, commission chair there, and they've had a conversation. And so there has been conversation, but it has not involved us in terms of setting meetings or setting a relationship.
Any other questions?
Okay, great, thanks.
Any comments before we open the public hearing? I suggest we make the public hearing since we
All
discussed
three?
all three topics.
It's already open.
It's already open.
It's on,
Yeah, okay,
that
it's
was
open.
part of, that's on the record, it's part of the.
Okay, that's already
Comment.
broken, yeah, you're right. Okay,
Go for it.
anyone like to come up and speak?
Lee Atwood with Paradise City. I'm the city manager. And I got first asked, because you said limit it to 3 minutes. Can I have 9 minutes? Because we're doing three?
You can
Or
come
is
back
that
for the other
possible?
ones later if
I
you
can
want.
come back later. Did we combine them or not?
Find him, yeah.
We can, yeah, so my question, if you got our letter, I want to make sure you got our letter. It sounds like you did from Paradise City. And the way we interpret your code is you would do the rezone, you would then do approval of a master plan, and then you kind of fall into the development agreements that you would come up with, kind of piecemealing that out, and we'd call that maybe like phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Did you say that was not the case? Your code is not written that way anymore?
It's still written that way, but it's not all legally applicable anymore.
Well, there is the state code, the way we interpreted it, and I believe the attorney talked a little bit about that, was that's a possibility to do that, have that as a choice, but then it says in what you quoted, it said a development agreement may not allow use or development of land if it's applicable, land use regulation governing the area subject to the development agreement would otherwise prohibit it unless the legislative body approves the development agreement. So how this, at least in our mind, that's getting circumvented a little bit is it may be approved, but it's an option, but it'd be more of an option if in the county ordinance it didn't state do a master plan, then do the development agreement, then go out and do the actual work. And I think that's where Paradise City is having some issues because there's a lot of impacts, and I think Nolan touched on some of those, of as we develop it out a piece at a time, where do we actually end up having some coverage? Looks like a lot of money that could potentially come into the Cache County in property taxes and such. But if all the services are supplied by Weber County, it won't take them long if we just throw out some numbers, just guessing. But if we think we're going to collect $5 million and Weber County says it's going to be $4 million to cover the services, by the next year they'll probably be on to it and say, I think we ought to be $5 million, or it might even be $6 million. So it may be, without having all that information, I think that's the concerns that we had. And that's more what the letter was, not so much maybe some of the other access things. If you read what we had, we really just feel like the county, you ought to follow the code. And the reason you're doing a public hearing, from my understanding or interpretation of the code, is that it would be like doing a zone change or a subdivision or whatever else that requires you to do a 14-day notification and then give a recommendation to the council to actually adopt something new in your code. And that's what if I'm interpreting that right, that's what the public hearings are for. But we're not really following the code. We're kind of circumventing that by going, okay, let's go around that with the public hearing. And we wouldn't do that the county wouldn't do that on probably any of the other portions of their code. They would just say, here's the code. needs to be done, need to follow it. If it takes time, then it takes time. But then we end up getting it right as we give it the ample time, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a second.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I got a question maybe for staff. Sure. Angie or Connor, whoever wants to answer it. So, at least in my experience with development agreements in cities and big developments, you can put a lot of requirements in that development agreement, can't you, to mitigate some of these issues that we're concerned with? It's not just you get a development agreement, go do your project, right? You still got to go through all the steps for approval. There can still be safety measures put into those development agreements. I know in some cities they require bonds as part of those. I don't know if the county does. It almost seems to me we can have more control in some instances on these little projects to make sure they're done according to our current code. And again, there's some discrepancies in our code and state code, but development agreements have always been an option under county code. They're now just being used. We don't do a lot of development, so not many people come and request, I think, a development agreement from us. In cities, you see them fairly often with big developments. But I just want to make sure that's the case. There's a lot of things the planning department, engineering department can put in that development agreement to make sure, it's not going to get out of hand up there, I guess is.
Yeah, my experience with other municipalities is that sometimes a rezone request is tied to a development agreement, so that if you approve the rezone, it limits them to that particular development. With us, yeah, we haven't done it a lot except with Powder Mountain the last year or two. I would defer to Andrew about how much we could ask or extract from a development agreement, but I believe that possibility is there to add some requirements. I just don't know what the width or breadth of that would be.
The development agreement is basically a contract, right? So
Yeah.
Give and take both ways, so whatever you want to put in there, right? As far as doing any sort of exactions or whatever, I think we want to be careful when we analyze what you're talking about, what you want to get into that. But if we want to look at the maintenance one, the language from the agreement itself is like, hey, they want to do for the existing structure, they're going to apply and obtain zoning clearance for the building permits, and if these applications comply with the building codes, and then we're going to issue the permits for them essentially.
Yeah.
So,
And
they
so
just gotta
for
do
the
same-
fire, if the fire
Yeah,
department
whatever.
requires
Yeah,
a
so
sprinkler
like,
system in there, it's going to be in the building.
If you want to change language in there, I mean, we can have that conversation, because it's contract one or another. I
Yeah,
don't know if that
yeah.
answers the question or not. but-
I was all right with it, but I just wanted to make sure that we were all thinking the same way on that, I
If I
guess.
may say, going back, as Brooke mentioned, that they've been conversations with Dirk, and as I've sat through these meetings, Dirk pointed out and strongly said that the master plan is where they get to drill down and be more watching on that. And so as this process has gone through, it's always been, well, the master plan gives us authority deeper than the rezone and all of those other things that was coming through. And so I've had hesitancy about that because he relied on that the master plan would give us some teeth to say what's going on there. We don't have a master plan. And so I understand the development agreement, well, I sort of understand the development agreement, we've got this development agreement, this development agreement, this one is, so thus you see the confusion that we're sitting here, and it's evidence in what the citizens say, and it's evidence in what I'm trying to understand, and we're asking this commission to understand that too. So I just want to be careful, because this is a big project, and they have all the right in the world to do that. But at the same time, we have all the right in the world to make sure it's done properly and check by check as we go through this process.
Can I just say something real fast? Commission, thank you. I'm Jason Wynn. I'm the fire marshal for the county. Just to let you know, when Brooke was talking about the agreements and whatnot, we are in the process of getting an agreement with Weber County. We have an agreement with Weber County, but unfortunately it was signed way before me and Chief Hammer were around. And so we know that it was done, but we can't find the paperwork. So there is an agreement, and they do cover that part of Powder Mountain for us
any kind of an accident, any event, anything up there, they do cover. Now, the things that we cover up there is the code enforcement. Any building that's on our property in Cache County, we actually go up and do the inspections on it. If they're gonna build a new building, like they're talking about the maintenance and everything, we will get the plan reviews, we will review the plan reviews, and we will go up and do all the inspections for that building. So it's not like that it's gonna be you know, we won't know what's going on. We will be between the building department and the fire department, we will know what's going on up there and make sure that it's done right, so.
Are you fully comfortable in, Jason, if this was to move ahead as asked in these 3 phases, are you comfortable then? Is there any concerns from you regarding not having the master plan ahead of that, or is that over your pay raise?
Kinda, but as far as me feeling comfortable, I mean, if you guys decided that, you know, it would be okay, I would be comfortable with, you know, going with the 3 phases. I mean, there's only one phase that's gonna really affect us, and that's the maintenance shop. Now, the the lift and the trail stuff, I wouldn't have anything to do with us, but.
Just a quick question for you. Mr. Atwood presented an interesting, I know that one of Powder Mountain in their prior presentations, one of their big sellers was how lucrative this is gonna be to the county, and when it's all said and done, it could be, but, in your opinion or in your communication and prior experience with Weber, can they sock it to us on that?
Well, I don't think we're gonna let them sock it to us. I mean, there was talks about doing some different things, and we said, no, we're not gonna move any lines, we're just gonna keep, you know, we will keep the Cache County side. Yes, we will have to pay them to cover our area. We don't know, I don't think they're gonna charge us anything for the first year, or maybe even 2 years, due to the fact we only have two cabins or residents.
I'm good with that, it's all speculation.
But we will not let them run us over.
Okay.
We will negotiate the contracts if we need to. We're just not just gonna let them run us over. Because eventually, it's gonna be big enough that maybe, you know what? We have a contract with them and we say, hey, maybe we've split this contract, there's enough calls up there on the Cache County side that maybe we put people up there as well.
Once again, so if we were to move ahead tonight with these 3 deals, you guys would you would be forced to communicate, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
With Weber?
Absolutely.
Just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then our building department would also move ahead with inspections.
Correct. And we will come up with another agreement. We're in the process of trying to put the fire district together and getting the board members together. So now that the board members are together, that's where we're gonna ask the board members, you know, for the permission for the agreement, and ask them what they, would like to see in the agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioners, full disclosure, and I don't think I need to recuse myself, but back in 2016, company, we were tied together at the time, did a lot of work for them. I've been in that shop, I've been on the property, I've been down most of the ski runs, and everything I saw, they did everything first class. And I think that they've done their due diligence in providing, to the county, the master plan, their side of that master plan and what they had in mind. And we just, as Cache County, we haven't been able to do as fast as we would like. But I think that to say that, oh, we're going to get beat up because we don't have a master plan, and I feel bad if we're going to pass this on to the council and they're going to have to fight the same fight with the public. But I've been up there in summer and in winter, and I've seen what they've done, and they do an amazing job with that little shop they've got. I've been in the shop, and it's plugged up with equipment, and that's more of a hazard to me than having a new shop that is set up to really handle all that equipment. So as we go through the different, 4, 5, and 6, I think they've done their side of this. And that the master plan isn't in place because we couldn't provide the service that we would like to be able to do. We haven't done between everybody having to look at it. So, again, I don't think I need to recuse myself, but I'm very much in favor of going forward right now.
Yeah, I feel similar to Lane. I mean, we do have a draft master plan in place that they brought. I don't remember how many hundreds of pages. I mean, it's a big, right?
I didn't read it all.
I didn't read every page, but I've looked through it quite a bit because we've had it for 6 months or whatever now, right? So we've got a pretty good thing there. But for our understaffed currently planning department to try to turn that around in 6 months and being a new thing is a lot to put on them. But I don't think the applicant going through the process, right, knowing that that's taking longer than anticipated to get through that approval of a master plan. This is an option that's in county code and they're looking for it. But yeah, for these three things and knowing that they're going to be reviewed, the building's going to be built to code, it's going to be inspected, it's going to be, I wouldn't have an issue recommending approval to the county council either on this one.
I mean, what would change in the master plan? I mean, it's in a draft mode, so I mean, what could happen?
I would think on these three items, nothing probably, right? There might be some other things in there that with some of the roads to the other places, with all the potential condos and residents that are gonna be built that aren't part of this. To me, that's the bigger area that needs the real scrutiny under it, because that's gonna have a huge impact, right? A new maintenance shed, to me, isn't a huge impact one way or another if we make sure it's built according to county code and it's safe. But if we put in, I don't remember the housing numbers, but there's quite a few, right? That can have a big impact on everything. The roads that address that with safety, but the building, to me, I don't think is gonna change at all in that master plan.
Okay. Any other comments?
Can we just review real quickly? I feel more comfortable with the shed, and I feel more comfortable now too, just knowing that there'll be communication, but the two things that were a little more concerning to me was the trails and the lift going in. We didn't really have any conditions.
Well, I don't.
Yeah,
That'll all be taken care of by
yeah, through the
fire
zoning clearance
and
review.
the building department.
Yeah.
So there's really no.
Yeah, and I did actually bring this up to UDOT when we talked to them a week and a half ago, just if they had any concerns about the extra capacity that the new ski lift would bring in or the hiking trails, and they were just more concerned about the built structures and those impacts, so they didn't, even though it will increase capacity, they did not have any concerns with the impacts at this time to the traffic counts or anything. But yeah, it will go through the zoning clearance where we send it out to all the departments for review and we can look at it more closely and make sure it complies with all of the different codes. And then the building permit process would be after that. So.
One comment I'd like to make is, like, I agree with Nolan on that. If we let this happen tonight, we're letting a business go ahead and do something that probably a private citizen couldn't do which like a private property, just an individual. So we don't see this. You just see what I'm saying? That we're making exceptions. Right, I agree. I mean, the maintenance shop, that's pretty straightforward, but it's better to get the master plan approved and go step by step. So I guess we need to.
Well, I'll make a motion for item number 4, because we haven't officially, we're still just on 4. For the Powder Mountain Development Agreement Maintenance Shop, recommend approval to the county council.
I'll second that.
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
I'm against. Okay. All right. Next public hearing, we've already had the public hearing for number 5, Powder Mountain Development Agreement. Any comments or discussion on this one?
I guess, I don't know, and it helped that, the fire and stuff. The building's one thing, and it's around on the other side, but, maybe for the applicant, is there any other lifts? What's the proximity to this proposed lift that you're putting in? It's in that rectangle right below you, down and to the right.
Can you
Right
repeat,
there.
so what's the proximity of the lift to what?
That are already in.
The lift,
Aren't you on that right, just right of your blue knob where you're going? Or right where you're at?
I'm sorry, I don't have the driver. Here we go. Okay. Man, this is a test. It comes up if, somewhere right in here. So, the rain tree lift that went in last year comes into the same, landing zone. So that if you're familiar with ski lifts, they have top terminals, where you get off. And so that it's relatively close proximity to the top terminal of the other, lift in that area.
There is some there already?
Yes, there is.
I think this shows it right here, Brady.
That's right, there's a map right there, it shows that one
This is
lift
the
will
one they just put in.
lead over
And this
to
is
it.
the one
Oh,
they're
that's right.
proposing, so it would open up all that new terrain. This is the one we approved last time.
Any other comments before a motion?
Just with legal, do we need to, where this was a separate item, do we need to still open a public hearing and just close it or not?
You can't just be saying, it seems like we kind of morphed them all.
We kind of morphed them, but I didn't know if that was legal, how we morphed them, because we didn't really vote, so I,
Throw it on the record, that'd be my recommendation, just to.
open it here, okay.
So we have a motion to open number 5, public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
To have a motion to close the public hearing? Anyone want to say comment? Okay, go ahead.
I'll take a couple more minutes.
Okay.
And don't take any offense to what I'm gonna say. I have a 1 acre lot in the 10 acre zone. And, I really'd like you to give me a building permit on that house. Is that possible tonight?
Go through the process and bring an application.
Well, odds are if we followed the county ordinance, that would be a no-go typically, right?
It depends when that lot was made.
Correct. There's some things, but let's assume I made it yesterday. But typically that would be not a possibility because the code says it's not a possibility. So I'm just gonna wanna reiterate that what we're trying to do here is I just have you follow the current code. I know that people are have speedy timelines, want to get things done. And so I don't know which one of the members mentioned that, but if it was a private citizen, the odds are we'd probably beat them up a little bit more. You'd flat tell me, no, that's not going to work. But I do feel like that if we follow the ordinance, it's been put in place for a reason. And at the end of the day, if we follow the ordinance, the county ordinance, we're going to end up with a project that's going to be suitable for everybody, including the applicant that has private property rights, but also the county residents that are here and the future county residents that come.
Thank you.
That's my suggestion. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments on number 5?
I think it holds the same criteria as the shop as far as they're not gonna put up towers that aren't engineered to the hilt. I was there to see I think it was the last lift that was done, and when they get in there, they bring the equipment and they make it happen, and it's done right.
And I have no doubt they'll do it right.
Yeah, I mean, they can't, liability they're
Yeah, sure.
gonna shortchange them.
Sure, they'll do a great job. My viewpoint is that we need to follow the steps
Well,
of the master plan.
but council has given us that we're really not out of line.
Yeah,
We're still in line legally.
The legal, the people from the county attorney's office is like, what they're applying for, what they're doing is permissible.
It's, they're following county code according to how they could do it with this.
They're following county code and
Yep.
state code, state
Yep.
code laws. So, it's purely discretionary it's a may. You may enter into this if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve to the county council the Powder Mountain Development Agreement for the ski lift.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Was that all 4 days?
No, I was not an A. All right. Regular action item number 6, public hearing Powder Mountain Development Agreement for the trail system and biking trail system.
I'll make a motion, we open a public hearing for the trail system and art features for Powder Mountain Development.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any comment? Would you like to?
I just repeat what we just said.
Okay, all right. Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close it.
Okay,
Second that.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, I would make a motion to recommend approval to the County Council of the Powder Mountain Development Agreement Trail System and Art Features.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, item number 7, Saddle Ridge subdivision. Honor, if you'll take us through that.
Angie's gonna be the one that.
Okay, Angie.
Talk you through it here. You have the parcels up on that. Just as different than that. Yes, so, Commission, this is a request for a 21-lot subdivision on 210 acres in the agricultural A10 zone. The proposal has the 21 lots varying in size from 6.07 to 15 acres in size, with an average lot size of 9.42 acres. And that's over 198 acres. Approximately 12 acres will be dedicated for public right-of-ways and providing access. The proposed subdivision also impacts lots 10 and 11 and the ag remainder of the Nautica subdivision to the north. I don't know if we can pull out here a little. So this road will need to be realigned through Nautica subdivision in order to provide access to this proposed subdivision. So Nautica subdivision will also need to be amended. You may recall that Nautica subdivision did submit a subdivision amendment to create an additional lot 12 in their in that subdivision boundary with the change with the A10 zone and the net developable acreage. However, that has not been recorded yet, and that realignment of the road is not shown on there. And the plat that has been provided for this subdivision talks about including that amendment, but they will need to be separate, whether they come back and reapply for the Lot 12 subdivision in Nautica, or if they come back in after that one is recorded. The change in the roadway would cause a significant enough change, and since that initial amendment has already been approved and conditioned and the plat reviewed, that would require another visit back here and fees paid. And also on the plat, they do have the property owner signatures for both of those properties in Nautica that would need to be on this subdivision plat and the other. The road realignment also impacts the Nautica Tower or Fritz Tower CUP that you may recall from the 3 times it came before you. But the road realignment will impact that and will, you can see in the picture in your staff report that the road alignment kind of goes right through that property, so it could impact their public infrastructure overlay zone and their setbacks, so that's something else that needs to be addressed, but was not as part of the application. So we do have code requirements for subdivisions, including incomplete subdivision applications. You can read through the history, but they've submitted a potential subdivision for this area a couple times. They've been found incomplete. At some point, they have requested that we just keep moving this forward, even if it is a denial, because they want to be able to just appeal some of the county code to the land use hearing officer. So that is the case that even though I deem this application or request incomplete, that there's not all the information that needs to be in there, that we are just proceeding forward because they wanted an actionable application. So in Title 16, which is the subdivision requirements section, we have 16.04080 suitability requirements for subdivisions. So there's certain information as part of the code that needs to be reviewed and to establish the availability of basic services to provide for the public health, safety, and welfare. That includes water requirements, sewage, fire control, school bus service, roads and access, solid waste disposal, and other information and materials as may be required by the Land Use Authority. So if we start with the first one, water. Per code, domestic water rights are required for all subdivided lots, with the exception that the subdivision can be approved with a single dry lot. The required water rights shall be approved by the State Division of Water Quality and in conformance with Utah and Administrative Code. So based on a search of the Water Rights Division website and what the applicant has submitted, there are currently 13 equivalent domestic water rights, 11 approved and 2 unapproved associated with the parcels in this project. The applicant has argued that our application states, which is different than the code, that they all have to be in the property owner's name. These are not. They are in a couple of different LLCs, but with advice and counsel from our attorney's office, it has been decided that they don't necessarily need to be in the property owner's name at this time, but they do all need to be associated or in progress with the parcels in question. So currently, with the 21 requested lots, they only have 13 water rights in place. And as I mentioned, they did add those 2 LLCs that hold the water rights, the GEA Properties and Logan and Entrada, on the plat. It is possible they could change the property ownership of those water rights prior to recording it, and they wouldn't need to sign it, but as long as they are a signatory and those water rights are associated with those particular parcels, that is sufficient. However, the number that they have provided is not. They did provide that further feasibility studies and percolation tests will have to be done with septic, but it appears that septic systems are feasible on all the properties. But yeah, they still need to do some percolation testing before the Bear River Health Department will sign any subdivision plat. The fire code, per code, the county fire district must review the proposed subdivision, identifying any items related to providing adequate fire protection and suppression services, including but not limited to ability to meet the requirements of the International Fire Code, suitable equipment access based on the needs of the proposed use, including sufficient roadway improvements, turnaround capabilities, year-round maintenance, and access, as I mentioned, and then water supply for fire protection as well. Our county code in Chapter 15 adopted the International Fire Code, including certain specific sections of Appendix D, which talks about not allowing additional development on a road without a secondary infrastructure access. Currently, the only access into this proposed subdivision is from the north, which goes all the way over to, was it 2400? But there is only one access, there's no secondary access. So the fire code, and we have tagged a few roads in the county with having more than 30 single-family homes on a single access road, that no further development is allowed until a secondary access is in place. So there are currently 26 either built or entitled lots on this roadway. The 27th is the Nautica subdivision amendment that I talked about earlier. So currently, without a secondary access, only 3 lots would be allowed. However, there has been some discussion, and I linked the letters in the staff report between the county attorney's office and the developer's attorney regarding interpretation of that code. But I think, and Andrew can just correct me, I think it's still applicable. I don't know if you just want to give your interpretation of that.
When it comes to the section of the fire code, the counter's opposition would be that yes, that they would have to apply by that. Now, if they want to meet one of those exceptions, they can argue if they meet one of those exceptions or not. And maybe it'd be more of a question of, me answer whatever questions you have on that. But yeah, I would say that our position would be that D 107.1 does apply because if you want to get over 30 units on that house, then you have to have two separate accesses or meet one of those. No any disagreement on that, but you want to ask, that's our opinion, we're happy to flush that out.
Development for future secondary access to the development. It's not.
I'm happy to get into one of those. We'll hash that out when it comes to that point, so.
Yeah, and I think ultimately the fire official has to make a decision on that.
If you want to proceed forth under exception number 2, I'm going to leave the language, like, if you just want to. So the rule is developments of 1 or 2 family dwellings where the number of dwelling units exceeds 30 shall be provided with 2 separate and approved fire apparatus access roads. Exceptions, 1, 2, you want to talk about number 2 first. Exception number 2, the number of dwelling units accessed from a single fire apparatus access road shall not be increased unless fire apparatus access roads will connect with future development as determined by the fire code official. So that's the rule that's been adopted by the county. So
And to date,
yeah.
yeah.
Discretion to the fire code official as to whether those roads will connect with future development.
And I would just add, to date, that hasn't been brought forth for a decision. And so, yeah, again, based on what the fire official decides, it could change this subdivision plat significantly as well. Roads and access and storm drainage, they would be required to put in any infrastructure related to storm drainage in. The county engineer did do a review of the current access. The property is, as I mentioned, accessed by a substandard road. Maintenance actually ends at the north end of the Nautica subdivision currently. Yeah, sorry, he's got this 2-screen thing going on. I can't figure it out. So you can see the turnaround kind of up there at the top. That's where maintenance currently ends. During the Nautica Amendment subdivision, it was originally denied due to the road issue because there was a county public right-of-way fronting a private road. So it did go through county council in order to vacate that private road and have the county take over that. But again, there are some road improvements associated with the Nautica subdivision amendment that have not been completed, but I don't believe they extend the full length, but Matt can talk more about that if you'd like. But again, a basic review, the access is via 6400 South, 1600 West. It's an existing county facility classified as a minor local. Currently, year-round maintenance, as I mentioned, ends half a mile north of the proposed subdivision at the Nautica subdivision boundary. Outside of Nautica subdivision, this road is substandard with a prescriptive use road that is paved, sorry, that is a bad sentence right there. Anyway, it does provide access to residential and ag lands, but the proposed development would have about 48 total homes on this road, exceeding the recommended design standards for minor local. So 400 ADT or 40 single-family homes. It's estimated it's about 10 trips per single-family home per day. So currently there are 26, and then this would add an additional 21 for a total of 49 lots with the Nautica subdivision parcel. So that's a total of 490 ADT. The county engineer is recommending that a traffic impact study be done in order to actually evaluate the impacts to the road, including the access from the main road that kind of winds around. It's also considered substandard, has issues with clear zones, and needs to be improved. So the engineering also deemed the application should be incomplete until the following information is submitted. Preliminary plat needs to show how the proposed roads will continue or connect. The proposed development is located in an area that is accessible by only one access road, so not only does it meet fire code in that sense, it doesn't meet our road standards either. The applicant did provide, and I think it's part of the staff report or the supplemental materials, an exhibit showing potential roads going through. I'm not sure that meets county engineer standards. And since none of them are in place or have any future development plans, are not really seen as potential secondary access for the fire apparatus, egress and ingress. Yeah, they'll need to provide right-of-way dedications. The primary road, 1600 West, would have to be improved and constructed to meet the minimum requirements for a major local. And again, we point to the road manual section 2.4.A1C about no development shall be approved on inadequate roadways, public or private. Roads along the identified access to the proposed development shall be required to meet the minimum roadway standards as outlined. And development that is serviced by multiple substandard roads shall be reviewed on the ability of the entire road network providing service to said development. Substandard roads that are not directly adjacent to a proposed subdivision or proposed development, but that still provide service to the development shall be required to meet minimum standards. So again, engineering is recommending a traffic impact study in order to look at that whole network of access all the way back to the main road to see the impacts and what would need to be, would be a condition of approval to improve those roadways to make them safe for the general welfare and safety of the traveling public. Any of those plans after the traffic impact study is completed would have to be reviewed and approved by engineering, but again, we don't have that right now, so we cannot do a full review or make reasonable conditions without that information. And then, yeah, school bus service, solid waste are also additional service provisions that are addressed in Title 16, but that's fairly simple to address. And then there are some sensitive areas in the that may require additional review or analysis based on the location of development, but that hasn't been addressed here. So we did post notices and haven't heard anything back from the general public, but out there it's kind of a hard, it's wide and spacious, so notifications didn't go too far. But again, we are recommending denial of the subdivision as the Planning Commission is authorized to act as the land use authority. It's been reviewed by Planning Commission per the staff report pursuant to the requirements of the Cache County Code, the Subdivision and Land Use Ordinance, International Fire Code, and the Manual of Roadway Design and Construction Standards, and it's been determined that the proposed subdivision is not in conformance with and does not meet the requirements of Cache County Code. So that again is staff's recommendation. If you look in your packet online, the developer and applicant did meet with the executive's office this week and had some recommendations on how they'd like to see the staff report changed. I was at a conference and just saw that today, but I did upload it so you could review it. We did not make any changes based on that because, again, we still feel it is not in compliance with code. And I mean, they could resubmit, it could be continued instead of denied, and they could have the opportunity to resubmit some stuff, but at this point, there's just not enough for all of the different departments to do a full review or confirm that it's in compliance with those codes. Thank you.
Where were those suggestions at again, Angie?
I think it was in, if you go to 4 PC meeting packets, there is, where are you at? Under the April 3rd, up at the top, item 7, supplemental materials. And you can see the second one. With
Item 7?
Yeah. But up at the top, there's a separate folder. This is item 7, supplemental. Are you seeing that?
Wait, yeah, Angie, one, Mr. Chairman, may I sure ask her a question? So I think staff did a good job providing us the information they did. And haven't been here for those Nautica deals. We're well aware of that area, but the question I had or concern that I had, isn't that east side where this is going off quite a slope?
I think, yeah, it slopes from the road kind of down towards the west, and then
They go
there's
south on it. I just kind of, I mean, it's not going to change anything what we've already got in our staff report, but I just was a little surprised that the steepness wouldn't have been brought up in the application or applicable.
Yeah, and
in
it
conjunction
could, depending on
on
the
the west side.
Yeah, right.
the west, yeah.
Yeah.
It does drop off on that west side of the road as shown, so yeah, potential, there's the red you can see. So yeah, it could impact any potential realignment. I don't know if Matt's looked closely at that or not, or if it's even going to be a possibility to realign it at that point.
So are those red areas we're saying it's not buildable?
Steep slopes,
What about
yeah.
yellow?
Yellow is a moderate.
Marginal.
So yeah, it could be built in if you have a geotech done. The code does allow, though, for public infrastructure to be built within a steep slope area, so. That would
So,
include a road.
And I think it's in the applicant's information, page
Page 13.
13. Is those colors the same Is that what we're seeing on their subdivision plats? There's red and yellow, is that,
I believe they added that to it, yeah.
but is that reflective of what we're seeing there
Well,
possibly?
this is, as our GIS department would tell you, this is not a very specific or, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not great data for steep slopes, so it gives us just a general sense, but it hasn't been shot with a survey that's,
Okay.
can give us
Well,
more detail,
like
but
I
it just
say,
highlights that there is a steep.
It's
could be a
incidental
steep
to
slope.
the other information, but
Yeah.
it was still a question.
Okay.
Chair, can I have a question?
Sure.
So I've sat on planning and zoning before, and this one seems odd. Why is this even before us if it doesn't meet code? And why is this even before us if they don't have water rights for all of the lots? I don't see why this is before the commission if they have not met the code and those other things. Why are we hearing this?
Incomplete application too.
Yeah, again, we have processed it, have issued memos regarding incompleteness, given full lists of all this stuff. They are the ones that wanted to move it forward because they believe they have a difference of opinion about what our code requires and when it requires it. And so based on that, we have just decided to process this, but as you mentioned, it doesn't meet code, so, and I don't think there are enough conditions to.
Our time as well?
So maybe I'll jump in real quick. So there is some disagreement on, like, for example, the fire code, differences of interpretation. So
As
part-
Brady said, excuse me, but we listened to this in Nautica before, and we've restricted as what's going on there, so.
So part of what the applicant wants to do before they could appeal that decision or our county's interpretation, they need a final decision of a land use, a body, so basically the council at this point, so then they want to appeal it, this is the step they have to do to appeal that determination, if that makes sense. So that's why they brought it.
We're happy to clarify that, and then we'll answer.
Okay. Comments? Thank you, Angie. Matt, do you have any questions? We could want to address anything up here, regardless to this? You're good?
If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a couple similar to,
Yeah.
as the water one's the big one. I mean, you gotta, if you don't have enough water, and they had comments in their rebuttal to that they didn't want to get the water rights before the approval of risk of losing them for not use, but it's pretty easy to file a non-use application for 7 years with the state to not use those water rights for.
And again,
You
we
don't lose
require
them.
that on all the others.
Yeah.
Are those points of diversion for all those 13 water rights in those lots which they've segregated?
On the water right documents, yeah, it does indicate those parcels are where they are, and that map reflects that as well, so.
And one maybe just for the developer, on those water rights, I'm guessing those lots, most people are gonna wanna have a horse or a cow or something. They have no water right for that. The way your water rights currently are, you'd have to do a change application on all those. I mean, just so when people buy those lots, they know that under current water law, they're not allowed to have an animal watered out of those wells.
Any other comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may we just ask who in the audience is here for this?
Sure. To make a comment on it.
By show of hands, who's here for this? 2, 3.
Okay.
Has your questions, concerns been addressed?
I have no concerns about it. It actually is beneficial for, I'm a lot 11 owner, it's beneficial for us, because it creates our lot as one piece instead of two parcels, in a sense, because we don't have a road going through it. The road goes to the west of us.
If you were gonna say something official on the record, we didn't know, I just was curious if,
Well,
but
this isn't a
you
public
wanted me to
hearing
come up
either.
and say something?
Right.
Yeah, it's not a,
Public
we
hearing,
can
so-
take public comment if we want, but it's not a
That's
public
right.
hearing. They can come up if you want to, so
If
it's
you'd
up
like
to
to
you.
come up, state your name, and if you'd like to say anything on the record.
Might as well make it fun. I'm Stephen Fritz. I'm the owner of Lot 11 with my wife. It is actually beneficial for us if it was to be passed because it would turn that road that dissects my property, Lot 11. It would make my Lot 1 piece instead of 2, which with it 2, there's a lot of traffic coming from my neighbor, which is a hazard. And if it was a one piece, that traffic would go to the west of us instead of right through the back of my land.
Your lot's You're Stephen Fritz?
Yeah.
So your lot's the one that's split?
Yeah, lot 11 right there, that's split with the nautical tower for internet providers up there. So it's actually be very beneficial and safer for us and my kids if it was passed, because everything would go to the west of us, and we'd actually be a lot safer for my kids and my animals. So that's one thing I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Lee Atwood, now just a resident of Paradise. It's Paradise City. So I just like to suggest that the Planning Commission follow their ordinance the way it's written and do whatever the ordinance says you should do. That's really what the ordinance are there for, is to guide that. So I just wanted to go on the record saying that. So just follow the ordinances as is.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, commissioners?
You want to listen to the applicant?
Yeah, the applicant would like to take some time.
My name's Ethan Poppleton. I live in Petersboro. I'm one of the owners of this project and application. I guess I could go down and address each one of these individually, and you guys could ask questions, or I can address all of them at the same time. Up to you. But regarding water, like that's the big one. And before we even get into that, just know that we've had countless meetings with David Zook, Dirk Anderson, Andrew, the rest of the leaders of the county to address all of these issues, including our attorneys meeting with the county attorneys. And on January 28th, we submitted a letter from our attorney to the county regarding the water and how we in our research determined that it is not legal for a county to require somebody to own and transfer water to a property previous to a preliminary subdivision approval. We submitted that to the attorneys. They came back and confirmed that they agreed with that and that that was not a requirement.
Is that good?
Yeah, so I did a little bit more in depth with the fire code, with these things when it comes to water rights. When we first submitted, they were given a notice of incomplete application. I think the notice was that you had to have all the water rights in the name of Saddle Ridge, whatever it was. And I wasn't tracking anything under state code or county code. It said all those had to be at the time of the application. I think we're on the same page that prior to this being prior to final approval, all the water rights have to be in place. I think that's where we're at. And I don't know if there's a disconnect between us and my understanding of if there's any issues with it on the development services side or what. I think we're generally on the same page.
We're in agreement on the final approval, and we have additional water under contract that we're ready to transfer on approval.
Between when that needs to happen or showing the process for it, I'm not, maybe me and Angie sit down and talk a little bit more in depth about that specifics, but overarching principles, that's where we're at. I don't know if that makes sense, Andrew, if you don't want to jump in or if you have done thoughts on that, Ethan, that's where I'm at.
So just clarifying what you just said, if we reject this, water's not a holdup.
As far as, you want to jump in,
I was
Angie?
just going to say, my understanding is our application, as I mentioned before, specifically states has to be in the property owner's name. So that's how we've handled it all the time. But in reference to their question regarding it, my understanding was that we determined it didn't have to be in the property owner's name at the time of the application, but you still had to have water rights associated with the subdivision because it only allows one dry lot. And so we can't evaluate a 21 lot subdivision with only 13 water rights because that's a 14 dry lot situation. So again, it was more of a nuance, was my understanding, that it just didn't need to be in the property owner's name, the Saddle Ridge LLC, because currently it's in a GEA Properties and a Entrada name. But those 13 water rights, if you look at the map in the staff report, are currently tied to those parcels, but we don't have the additional to make up for all the proposed lots. Again, we only allow for one dry lot, water rights, and providing adequate services in the county is different than a city or urban development. And so in this case, we don't want to get into the position where we approve a subdivision plat with no water rights, so it can't even be a buildable lot at that point. And water rights, they take a long time to go through the change application and transfer process. And these subdivision application approvals are only good for 12 months. Usually it takes longer than that, if you haven't even started the process before you apply for those subdivisions.
And this is why we got the attorneys involved, so that they could clarify the law as opposed to the requirement for the preliminary application.
Okay.
It's conflicting.
If simplistically it helps, the current county code, and please correct me if I'm wrong, hopefully it makes sense.
Would you like to get up and state your name?
Yeah, come on.
Christopher Huffman, I'm one of the applicants for Saddle Ridge. The current county code contradicts state law, at least from a general standpoint. So we started clarifying with the county attorney. We are in agreement. We have the full intentions of being able to transfer and to buy water, buy the remaining water rights for 21 lots. But we have no intention of having to come out of pocket for hundreds of thousands of dollars at a preliminary application stage where we don't even know where or when we're able to be approved. So,
And you,
yeah.
you could understand where we've already moved 13 rights up there. If this gets denied, now we have 13 rights we have to prove or transfer somewhere else, right? So we've gone through, and any applicant, right, would go through this process. And that's why I think it's really, at this stage, not legal for the county to require it.
the staff report reflects county code. Outside of the staff report are the county memos between, in a letter of opinion directly from the county's attorney, a letter directly from our attorney to the county. That would both be in agreement that water rights should not be a holdup at this stage of the application. And we should be able to move forward before talking about the other things on the list.
As far as clarification on the letter that was given, let's say, I can read from it, was here, we agree with the concern mentioned in the notice of incomplete application regarding water rights being in the property owner's name. In the context of a portion of the water rights section, blah, 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 they're like 60 clarification, so like I said, I think the nuance was, yeah, they do not all have to be in the name, that's another thing we're given, if you want us to dive into a little bit more, we're happy to do
Yeah,
so.
because that sounds like they just have to be they just have to show they have them. They don't have to be in their name yet, but they still have to show they would have enough, the way you're saying it. I think I'm hearing two different things here.
We have another 8 to 10 under contract that we can show. We just don't want to start the state process until we're able to get.
Right, and the letter from our attorney specifically talked about both of those. One being transferred and then being in our name.
Mr. Chairman, you mind? Yeah, go ahead. Sure. We definitely want to hear if you guys, whatever else you have to say, but why don't we skip over the water deal and move to, in my opinion, is Mr. Gunnellan already made clear that it's a miracle that you're even here with an incomplete application. Let's maybe hear your response to that. And then the road deals, how you gonna negate that problem?
Sure. First of all, we don't feel like our application's incomplete. Based on all of the meetings and the results of those meetings that we had, staff wasn't always a part of those meetings, and so those don't reflect in the staff report. Regarding the road, there was some conflict in understanding the two exceptions. The fire official, the way they read it, it was one exception and exception 2. And after, again, attorneys went back and forth, it was determined that those exceptions are independent. So as long as we satisfy one or the other, that we can move forward.
So help us understand how you're gonna negate, if that road's only designed to handle 30 homes. We got 26 with the 27th already approved, giving you 3. But if you get 21, now we're at 48. What's the exception that's gonna make that
So
happen?
the exception says any home beyond 30 has to have a sprinkler system installed. So our CCNRs will require those sprinkler systems. There's been some concern that the code says all homes will have sprinkler systems, meaning we would have to go back and retrofit the existing. But we actually found a code in the IFC that contradicts that. The existing homes don't have to be retrofitted. Anything over 30 requires sprinkler systems. And by us requiring that satisfies exception 1. As far as exception 2 with future development and access, we have provided in our packet potential roads connecting to Paradise West. We've also included a letter from the 2 owners south of us confirming that they would dedicate those county roads when they develop. The Leishman family is planning to develop immediately, if not soon after, if this gets approved. The Chris Nilsson family, they're undecided, but they agree that they would want that connection. And so that's why they've signed those letters in support of that future connection. So we feel like we satisfy both exceptions.
Okay. Well, you answered my question, but
Yeah.
whatever else they want to share with us.
Yeah, please continue if you have anything else.
We understand we have to amend the Nautica subdivision. We plan on doing that. We just didn't want to put the cart before the horse. There's no reason to do that if we're not going to get approved here. With regards to the setbacks on the tower, I spent a lot of time with Michael Taylor at Civil Solutions to make sure that we were outside of those setbacks with the road. I thought we were. If for whatever reason that's not the case, we will make sure that's the case. I didn't know if it was a misunderstanding from staff or on our part that that was an overlap, but that's certainly not our intent. We don't want to affect that tower at all. And then the other point was that the road not being in condition, the 6400 West Road.
Yeah.
Currently, the county doesn't even have a dedicated road through that property. They have prescriptive easements because you guys have been using that road for, more than 10 years. We couldn't improve that road if we wanted to, because we are not allowed to go in there and force a sale of a property and then improve the road. Only the county has the ability for eminent domain. So it would be not even pertinent to this application to deny us based on the fact that we can't even legally do what you would require us to do. There's also supporting evidence to show that in order for that road to be required to be improved, that there would have to be a,
The ADT.
Well, the ADT, but there has to be a history of repeated accidents. And there's only been 2 reported non-injury accidents over the last 15 years on that road. So to deem it unsafe or not able to handle the future development, we disagree.
I've been on that road though. There's no question, it's under 20 feet in many areas.
Yeah. It's over 20 feet in some also. And I would also point out,
Whatever else we're on.
yeah,
Lines.
the county has approved the Nautica subdivision on that road. They just approved Spencer Butterfield's lot on that road. So if it's unsafe, then you guys have already deemed it safe for additional homes. Not to mention, the road beyond that will be up to current county code. So anything beyond what you guys have already deemed as safe will be better than what is existing there. And I should also mention, we're not opposed to improving that road or paying our impact fee for what we would impact on that road so it can be improved. We want that road to be safe. But we don't have the ability to improve it because the county hasn't gone through and obtained the necessary dedications. And this is a decades-old problem for us to be able to do that. If the county is able to do that, we're happy to make that happen. But again, until that happens, we're happy to pay into the impact fees that it would require to get that done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Chair?
Yes.
You mentioned some things that I think that are out of context and how this whole process works. You said you've met with the executive and other things and other leaders. This is the body, and the development services is the body who approves subdivisions. I don't like somebody coming here and saying they've met with the executive when he has no role in the process of what's going on in the subdivision process. This is the commission. They're the development services. I don't think we we have other subdivision entities going to our executive. So I would ask that in the future, this is just my opinion, but I think I'm kind of upset that we're sitting here listening to an incomplete application when it doesn't meet code and all of those things. When these guys take their time, yes, you've taken your time, but I'm just like Brady. Why is this even before us? I just can't understand that.
We met with them because we disagree with the code. The code's illegal with regards to the water.
You guys should beat that code out and those agreements.
Which is why our attorneys met,
before
for
you
sure.
come to the commission.
Which is what we did.
If the clarification helps, this is the 4th or 5th time that we've tried to get to this body, so we can start to discuss these issues.
Yeah, but it's an incomplete application, so we don't want to sit and listen to an incomplete application. At least I don't want to.
Based on the attorney's agreements, we feel like it's not an incomplete application.
Even using the county's own code, I'm happy to go through it, but there are specific things, like in the staff report, we met Monday. Connor, David Zook, and just being able to clarify some of the things in the staff report to hopefully be able to clarify things that are on there that really are not an issue, like the cell tower alignment. Of course, we're going to stay outside of those setbacks and requirements. The fire code, we've already been having back and forth between the attorneys that we can apply for one of those two exceptions in the IFC and be compliant. As far as the road goes and the access and widening, the county doesn't currently own the dedications, and the county is effectively asking to enact an exaction, and there's two specific requirements for an exaction, neither of which the county currently meets by Utah State Code that they're able to make us. We want to improve that road currently, but based on the county's own code, it fits. Effectively, the debate is, okay, who's paying for it? And we would be legally required to pay for our portion of that road exaction, but we don't have the ability to do that. And that's, we have a current traffic study going right now, and if that traffic study, it'll effectively just determine whether or not the existing road's sufficient or if the road would need to be widened. But we have been trying our best to communicate with everybody at the county, and the staff report that we have tonight's a good example of we're doing our best to clarify these ahead of time, to be considerate of everybody who's here. 80% of the items on that list we really don't need to talk about because we've already discussed and believe that we are both on the same page. There's really only 2 or 3 concerns.
Yeah. Simply put, Mr. Gono, we weren't trying to undermine the commission for sure. We were just trying to clarify code and ordinance when we met with them. And simply put, we feel like we satisfy all of the items that were determined as a recommendation for denial. We feel like those have been satisfied.
And isn't that a discussion for legal? You can talk to their attorney and staff to figure this out before it comes to this point?
We did.
There has been a lot of that, and if there's those friction points, and I don't know, I'm not aware of any prohibition, Andy, or maybe jump in, but if we get to that point where they're just not budging, if we think there's the incomplete report, they feel it's complete, ultimately it's gotta come forward at that point, because they've done the best to move forward. They want to move forward with the application to get that decision from this body to therefore appeal it and move along with the project. That's when it would happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
for sure. And so really, we're here asking for a conditional approval based on the water rights transferring on final, which is easy. We've already satisfied the secondary access with the sprinkler systems, and we can't satisfy 6400 West because the county, they can't even fix it until you guys purchase the dedications from the private property owners. So we can't be denied on that because we can't even satisfy it.
Okay. Any other comments, commissioners, or any more questions?
No, and we're here to answer any more questions as they come up, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Jason, do you want to come up and so we can ask you a couple questions? I knew that's why you were back there. I knew you didn't want to leave early.
Matt's hunkering down.
Yes. Matt's, you're in the wrong spot to hide.
He's next.
He's next.
So, as you've read through those exceptions, if they did the sprinkler systems in all those homes, I guess they could do them in not 3 of them maybe. I don't know how that code would be interpreted.
We would require all of them.
But if they required it in all homes, that would meet that. And is that the only issue that you have with fire? Okay, what other issues do you have with fire up there?
So when you're reading the code, it has exceptions to the code. And I get, if you meet one, that doesn't mean that the other exceptions go away. You just can't. So, one, if they're gonna sprinkle it, great. I have no problem with that.
I just want to clarify, when we're talking the code here, sorry to jump in, under exception 1, it says more than 30 dwelling units access from single public or private fire apparatus access road, and all dwelling units are equipped throughout with an improved sprinkler system. Access from 2 directions shall not be required. Now, maybe I missed it from before, are we talking the existing 26?
Right, right.
26 without their sprinklers in them, plus whatever.
Plus the 3 more that they have.
I'm not sure if I missed something.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
one of
so
my only questions for you.
kind of having a hard time hearing you and then piecing this together too, so. speak up just a little bit and clarify what you just said.
Yeah, so you have the general rule and then 2 exceptions. If we're talking exception 1, we're to talk about the sprinklers or whatever. I know the applicant has said they want to put sprinklers in whatever new homes they want to build in on this. Our read of that first exception is that say, hey, where all dwelling units are equipped throughout.
So the first 27's gotta be also.
So our opinion would be the first 26 also have to be. Now, I don't know if we want to have a different conversation, that's been our understanding.
Give these guys a minute and then
Well,
we'll
which
hear
I
you.
addressed in my comment. In chapter 11 of the IFC, it excludes those existing homes. So that's all.
And when you're referring to chapter 11,
Yeah.
Chapter 11 of the IFC has a wrap that explains certain property types and what's required to have existing homes with sprinklers. And R3 is not required at all.
Hey,
has that one been adopted by the county?
can we just take a quick time out here? Based upon an incomplete application, based upon what staff's telling us, I see we got 2 options, and we're wasting all our time to continue this. We either deny it right now, or we give them 90 days to work all this out between your attorneys and you guys, because we don't need to hear it, we don't need to go over it. At least that's my take. What's you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's 100% agree with you. Enough questions that I wouldn't be able to recommend approval tonight for sure. Yes. And a lot of the fire ones, the ones I have questions with, because some of it's interpretation of code.
Sure. So I understand sprinkler system, but all of these homes are on a well, so is there a different requirement when a house is on a well who has no electricity and a fire comes?
You gotta have a reservoir.
So.
Yeah, you have to have a tank that's designed, it's a 13R sprinkler system in residential homes. They have to have a tank that requires, I think it's 100 gallons, it's gotta last 10 minutes.
Clarify that definition there and requirement, so.
But
I agree with Brady. We're hearing all of these things which
should have been done before.
We can't make a decision on. If we did, we're thinking ourselves as lawyers and we're not.
Well, we're just gonna waste everybody's time, so we either deny it or we table it for 90 days.
Okay, let's put a motion forward then. I think
We really appreciate your
time.
information.
Thank you. Well, I agree with you.
You're off
To
the hook,
point.
I guess, Matt. We'll have you later.
Okay.
I'd make a recommendation to table it for up to 90 days for them to work out some of these details. Continue for up to 90 days for them to work with.
But we want it to be, somebody's gotta agree on complete, because I'd be prone just to deny it next time if we're not set on.
Yeah, we're still getting different interpretations. Yeah, I want, if everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Make me more comfortable for sure.
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure. You can, but we're still gonna probably do this. Sure.
I was shocked when I saw the staff report, because I thought we had satisfied everything that they had done previous. When you say meet with this and take care of it before you even come in for application, we thought we had.
Right.
So when we saw a staff report, we were shocked.
Sounds like a huge one we need to figure out and make sure everyone's on the same page with that. So that one, safety for us, we're not gonna approve it until, I mean, the water rights, yeah, you can get those purchased and moved. I'm not as concerned about that, but.
Even with exception 1 out, we've satisfied exception 2 by showing the.
So that, we need that confirmation of your meeting with the fire marshal, so we'll get that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue.
Brady, yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Lynn.
No, I was gonna say, Nathan just made that.
You can second, or you can remake it.
Yeah,
I'll
there you
second
go.
yours.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we table that we continue item number 7, Saddle Ridge subdivision 2025, for up to 90 days to allow applicant and staff and legal to come to a consensus on application being fulfilled, and the 2 points, the road and the fire, that if they can work through them items, come on. If they can't,
May I interject? I believe water rights is also a thing there.
somebody's got to clarify it.
Exactly.
We need to know we either include it or we
And
don't.
we've held that standard throughout every subdivision.
I'll second that motion.
So did we get, I know you
Did
do
you
an
get all three
awesome
of
job
those?
with notes, but did we get those?
That you motion to continue Saddle Ridge subdivision up to 90 days to allow all parties involved to come to consensus on the application being complete and the issues of
And water.
fire road and water.
Fire, road, and water.
I guess my question or clarification, you want us to come to consensus. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be able to happen. That's partly why they wanted to be able to have a decision yea or nay on some issues, so then they can appeal it to the appeal authority.
So that's,
So,
that,
I just wanted to clarify
that's
that,
reasonable.
that makes sense.
That's reasonable.
So.
All right, I'll
Okay, do we have-
second that.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next item on the regular action item is number 8, ASI CUP amendment.
Perfect. Alrighty, so this is the ASI conditional use permit amendment number 1. It's a request to amend a previously approved CUP for a commercial business. As a bit of history, in July of 2017, ASI applied for a conditional use permit to expand an already existing operation. It was a commercial business type. The CUP allowed for the construction of a 3,800 square foot temporary structure, a 30,000 square foot structure, a 21,000 square foot structure, and a total of 325 parking spaces. At this time on the property, there's 9,600 square foot structure, two 2,000 square foot structures, and a total of 110 parking spaces. So the request of the description, essentially, over time, over the next 3 years, which seems like the timetable for the conditional use permit, the two 2,000 square foot structures would be torn down, and a new 1,700 square foot building, the footprint 1,700, would be added. And then 200 parking spaces would be added over the site over the next 3 years. Signage, their existing sign that kind of doesn't advertise their business, just their business sign, would be replaced. There would be 3 wayfinding / directional signs added as well. The one concern on that front is that 2400 North and 8000 West, that's located in Box Elder County, so we don't really have jurisdiction there. So the operation, in 3 years, they're hoping to have at least a maximum of 250 full-time employees who would be at the site 3 days a week. The hours of operation would remain at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The equipment that they use currently is used to maintain the facility. It's used to manufacture prototypes and its testing equipment. So basically, this would allow for the construction of a 1,700 square foot structure, 300 parking spaces, and allow for 250 full-time employees. Service provisions, sewage. The applicant has provided a copy of a septic feasibility letter from the Bear River Health Department from 2017 that states it's able to install a septic system that can meet the needs of 500 employees. As a condition of this, once they get towards the stage where they're going to record the permit, we need to see a stamped septic permit. Water, they do have a water right that has 10 EDUs and a commercial use. Basically because there's going to be more than 25 water users on site, they're likely going to need a public water system. So they'll have to provide something from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality for that. So roads, access is from 8000 West. It's considered a major local road. Provides access to the development and through access from Mendon to Petersboro. It's maintained by the county year-round. Has a variable width of 16 to 20 feet, a variable right-of-way, a 1 to 2 foot paved shoulder, no gravel shoulder, a variable clear zone, and has a gravel surface. It's considered substandard as a travel lanes, right-of-way, paved shoulder, gravel shoulder, clear zone, and material. So part of the road improvements that would be required is a 66-foot road dedication. The road would have to be meet major local road standards. And there would also have to be a traffic study. Essentially, it would be, if you look at that south side on there, right now the conditional use permit shows access from the north. But this would just kind of see which way they're coming. So the theory right now is it's coming from that west side right or east side right there. So that's just what that would determine. In terms of parking, it's more than 5 parking spots are required. A parking analysis will have to be submitted. In terms of fire, they didn't have any comments. Waste, they're already contracted with Waste Management to dispose of garbage weekly. Recycling is picked up bi-weekly. Then all of their waste is disposed of as needed. Impact stormwater development, as always, can cause issues, and apparently there are already some issues present on the property. Those will have to be resolved. Geologic hazards, so there's a multitude of geologic hazards on this site, specifically in the development area. You have a fault line running through there, you have landslide potential, you have surface rupture study zones. So we need to see geotech that gives us evidence for that and just kind of analyzes it. Modern steep slopes can develop in steep slopes. That geotech can also recover the requirement for development in those areas. Water bodies, there is a river that goes through the south end of the property. Wetlands, there's also wetlands that are present on the property, but it's the same thing, it's kind of along that river. Notices were mailed on the 21st of March, and the notice was posted online in 3 public spaces on the 24th. At this time, no public comments have been received. We recommend approval with 23 conditions that are listed there.
Okay. Thanks, Connor.
Okay.
Any questions for Connor?
Just real quick, I remember back in 2017 when we did this, and there was some discussion at the time. I want to say that the county was suggesting to require the applicant to improve the road that goes west and north around the property. And as I recall, we obviously, I don't know, I can't remember if they said that it was only used, it was shut off in the winter. I don't remember where that all went, but just even here in the packet, I'm anticipating the photo that's provided there is that road west and north of the ASI. So I don't know, maybe if we could just, I realize there's stuff here, but maybe if either Matt or you, somebody, where are we at with that road? That's probably my
Matt's the best guy to ask here.
only real question.
Matt Phillips, Public Works Director. You bring up a great thing. When this was done before, the county had a moratorium, and so they weren't allowed. They had to come to the council to get permission to even upgrade the paved road, from what I can read. Again, I wasn't here, so if I'm a little off, you know, give me a little latitude. But that road used to be dirt all the way from the north, and so they came in and the council approved them to, you know, go against the moratorium, and they were able to improve the road coming from the north to the property line. I think the county even helped fund that road, but that was a big part of that last one, was that road was built and it pretty much stopped at the property line. I don't know why that wasn't improved across, right? Our normal CUP, our developments are requiring people to improve that road along their frontage, but it had something to do with the moratorium and kind of previous approvals. We're getting a lot of reports from the road department that most of the traffic that's getting there is coming via the dirt road and not necessarily, so that's why we're recommending a traffic study to determine if those impacts are coming in from the south or they're coming in from the north, but and then try to make sure that the conditions are compensatory with where are they bringing those impacts. The amount of traffic and employees that they're going to bring in as part of this CUP is quite a bit.
Well,
so
yeah, 350. That was a huge concern,
Yes.
and with that, that's why I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Do you see? Is there any win-win for everybody, or are you waiting on that traffic?
the traffic study will help us to make sure that we're adequately applying the code in their impacts, right? If we do a traffic study and 99% of all their employees and all their traffic are coming from that other part, it doesn't really allow us a lot of room to make them improve stuff that's off-site. Across the frontage of their property, I think that's pretty clear in the code. I don't know why it was done last time. Engineering's recommending that be a pretty hard and fast condition, is that they improve it on their developer-owned property. What the traffic study is going to help us determine is whether outside their property, the access that's further north across the Yonks property and tying into the paved road on the south, whether there's some impacts on that road as well. And we just don't have that data. The county is plowing that year-round. I don't know if before, I mean, there's residential homes there that the county has to provide service to. So we do provide year-round winter maintenance on that road.
You do the entire way?
Yes.
You're talking the south side that's gravel, right?
Yeah, we do it all.
All the way up through and out the north.
Yes.
Because on the north end, you got that development on top.
Yes.
But that's a pretty bad stretch of road. From there to the.
It's paved.
But that was paved.
It's 100% paved?
Yes.
So where's this shot at? I thought it was north.
That is that's where they stopped. I think the picture you're looking at is right at the property line.
Oh, Oh.
And so the storm drain, those improvements all stop right at the property line, and all that storm water just is allowed to flow down the
So
gravel
it's
road.
paved to their north?
Yes.
It is fully paved?
Yes, and that was done per the last CUP. And again, for my records, I think the county paid a portion of
I
that.
apologize, because I was, just haven't been up there, not since the road was paved, but looking at this photo, I thought it was west and north.
That's,
so-
I think that photo's looking southeast,
Oh.
basically at the property line.
Property's right up here.
So on the south entrance, there's a pretty big dip in there, and the county put quite a bit to build that up after a washout.
Yeah,
right?
the county's put a lot of money in this road in the last few years, just because it's one of our highest maintained gravel roads. We have like 4 or 5 gravel roads that require a lot of maintenance. This is one of them. And in some places, this picture you're seeing, that's only 15 or 16 feet wide. Our
Well, every
graders-
year, if the runoff, that can just destroy it all over again.
Yeah, because the water just runs down the road.
So, Matt,
This spring,
Yeah,
that road is
yeah,
currently rotted and washed out.
yeah. And that picture is showing you part of that.
Matt, do you know, or are you aware, has there been between Development Services, yourself, or the applicant? Is the applicant here? Has there been any discussion between if there's willing to work together just to get this done and taken care of?
Of which, when you say get what done?
South part of it, on the property.
Yeah, what's
and the property.
left?
Well, it's hard in these situations and the last one, right? When they don't own that property, for them to come in and, when the county has prescriptive use roads, it gets pretty hard, so it's hard. I mean, all these road issues where we're having, a lot of development get hard. We're taking our old county roads that don't have a lot of
Budget.
dedicated right of way, and we can't chase development either, so. But yeah, the county's put a lot of money into that. We're not here trying to, push everything to the developer or, great project. We're just trying to give you guys the facts of, hey, these are the issues that we have out there. There is a lot of traffic. Our reports, maybe they're confirmed, not confirmed. The trash trucks come up that dirt road, so there's still a lot of traffic on the dirt road. Now, whether that's, we work with the attorneys to see whether their impacts require them to continue off-site further than what they own. That's a whole nother discussion. So a lot of times your decisions in these conditions, they might take us a while to figure out what the end of that is, right? We do a traffic study and it says, 80% of all the traffic coming to this place is coming from on the dirt road. Well, then
Maybe we paved the wrong road.
maybe you paved the wrong road, right? And so I would feel like that's just, impact. That's not an exaction to make them improve that as a business standard, right? Our standard for commercial development is a major local road, so.
Okay.
Does that help answer your
Can
question?
you just point out, zoom out a little bit? Just show us where that road is still gravel. Obviously, we know
All the way
that
across
north
their
point.
property.
One more time.
All the way across.
All the way across their property.
They're in the northwest corner, all the way down to the.
So that pavement ends, Brady, that pavement ends right here.
And then on the other side, where does it end?
All the way, you gotta come all the way down to get to this road, right here. So this is the part that we don't know how much of their traffic is directly related to their business. There's not a lot of other draws or trip generation, how many people are driving through all the way to get home to their other subdivisions. We don't have that information.
Oh, we might be putting 15 up there.
Yeah, Yonks might be putting in 15.
What would you say that is, a couple miles? Mile and a half? Darren?
Could be 2
I
miles.
think you're about 2 miles from the end of the blacktop to the beginning of the next blacktop.
Yeah, but it's a consistent issue, that road along there where it's gravel.
Well, I was on the commission when this went through before, and our understanding, as I recall it now, was that once they paved that upper road, that all the traffic would come that way. People just wouldn't take the lower road. Well, you get in a habit, it's short, and when the county, sometimes it washes out, so no, we're not gonna drive it for a while. The county will come fix it, and then we'll get back to driving it. So it was just, it's convenient, but as I recall, the understanding was, once they paid that was, they would instruct their employees to use the paved road. And now we're going to expand use, but you can't deny people use of that county road. So they do.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there isn't people using it, then by all means, we shouldn't make them improve it. I still think across their property, that fits the rest of our, standard development practice, that the development that you're doing the development on, you should build the road that
We're
you have.
redoing the CUP, so it's applicable to now.
Yes. The only one that we don't know for certain whether they should be required to improve and to what level would be outside their property, that lower portion of gravel road. And that's gonna have to do the traffic study. We'll probably have to involve the attorney's department to see if that's an exaction, and we don't have all that information right now before you, so we just condition it that if it's found that they are creating, impacts on that road, then they're gonna have to bear the fair share of that cost. And that could be 50%, it could be 100%, I don't know that. We're just trying to treat everyone fair and make sure that they can, get their development, but it is a commercial development, and that is a commercial standard, so. Stormwater, so that, I couldn't find a lot of old stormwater reports, and with the increased parking and pavement and buildings and stuff like that, just standard practices to require, stormwater reports and make sure they adequately address the stormwater stuff as well, so.
Right now, staff, I didn't read these all clearly, and I'm having a hard time finding it now. Are we requesting or suggesting with the conditions that they do pave that front, or is this something we need to readdress? Which one?
Which condition?
Yeah.
2.
There's 12 to dedicate the right-of-way.
It's 13. Improve by recording the permit, the developer shall improve 8,000 west to a major local road along the frontage of the proposed development on parcel 1248.
So we're covering that base, but then here.
And that would be the condition, that they improve it on their parcel.
So that traffic study will need to be completed and assessed prior to totally fulfilling this CUP in the
Yes.
event that they have to participate more.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
I'm good.
Is there any concerns about fire, where we're increasing the capacity? That's a big concern, right?
Yeah.
Is that something, Jason, you'd like to address, is the fire concern?
Yeah, the one thing that concerns me is we've had calls up that road and up towards there, and the fire department comes from the west side, just like everybody else. Just for the fact that they're coming from Mendon, they're gonna hit that road, that's the quickest way, instead of going clear around and down. That would take a little time, so.
Is there current storage though, for that bigger building or new buildings, their current storage is adequate, or they may have to increase?
They may have to increase it. They may we talked, and they had like 14,000 gallons up there. So depending on, how big the building is, they may have to, and they may not have to. I haven't seen the plans yet.
It's only half of what I have.
Yeah, I know.
So where do we have that one?
But that building will be sprinkled as well, so
Okay.
it's gonna cut that water supply in half.
That'll come with a zoning clearance, right?
Yeah, that'll come with the zoning clearance and, through all that, so it will be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, you have to vote to extend the meeting.
Oh, yeah, we're almost out of time, aren't we? Oh, really? All right, to make a motion to extend the meeting, 10 minutes, is that gonna be?
Well, we still got a few more items on here, so I don't know if 10 minutes can quite do it.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we extend for 30, we'll see if we get it done. I
I'll
think we
second
can,
that.
but,
I like my 10 minutes, but, all right.
yeah, but we'd extend this.
I know.
We've been there.
All right, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The applicant here, would you like to come up and say something?
Sheridan Guyman. I'm the facilities and safety manager up at ASI. I've been up there for 12 years. And I kind of got thrown in the deep end on this one with all this growth. But Connor and Angie have been awesome. They've been real patient with me. But to address the road issue, yeah, that south road is narrow, it's potholed, it's really hard to keep the snow cleared. And as far as the county goes, they clear it usually several hours after any snowstorms. Typically, I personally keep the road open with our plow just as a second route to get out of there, because the north road was also really bad before it got paved. And the county's been great to keep that cleared. Usually by about 8:30, it's free of snow and salted, and it's helped out immensely and increased the safety situation there for sure. As far as the traffic on that south road, nobody's anxious to take that road into ASI unless it really makes sense. We've only had about 50 employees coming in consistently since about COVID. And only about 10% of those people that come from Hiram or from Mendon use that dirt road typically. Everybody else uses the paved road, and then we constantly remind them of speed limits and things like that, just because, and we even have people commute from Salt Lake to come up that way. So, and I'm fine with the traffic study to determine that, but my 12 years of experience out there is nobody's anxious to use that road until it's improved, and we've encouraged people not to use it. We consider it's too narrow, it's not safe, as needed type of situation only, but yeah, like I say, this is just a amendment to our conditional use permit. It's much simpler than the grandiose plans the owners originally had. It's much more realistic for the property and the slopes and things that we're facing out there, and our lack of water and power and just about everything else. Do you guys have any other questions that I can answer for you?
Do you guys have any? Do you think we probably ought to allow the public if there's a comment or two, and then he may need to respond back?
Also, just a correction on what Connor mentioned, it's a 17,000 square foot new building. It's a 1,700, just to be sure. It's a little bit bigger.
That's gonna be really tall if that's the footprint. Fit those employees in there. 12 stories is all.
Does anyone here would like to have a comment?
My name's Darren Cox. I got the property just right up above it. The road is a concern that if we're going to add 500 parking places, I'm just curious about the growth of the company. And is that going to be built into it for the usage of the water? Can the aquifer sustain that? Has there been a study on the aquifer? I can tell you I've got a deep well up there. I burnt my motor up several different times because I'm 5 feet below the casement of the well with my water pump. So how far is this commercial business going to be developed? I don't know as a landowner. I can tell you that there's a lot of public that uses the road besides the people that are there, like ASI and myself. We do get together and try to keep the snow plowed out. That's a struggle because we're not the first ones to get plowed because we're so far out of the way. So, and it is a struggle because, I've seen women with strollers down there on that road. The bad part. I see a lot of people jogging. I see a lot of people on bikes. I see a lot of people with their dogs. So it's not just ASI and Cox's Road and the Yonks that use it. The whole community uses it, especially with the development up on 8,000 back behind it. So I just ask that you consider looking at the aquifer and making sure it can sustain the growth that they're asking for, and then really put hard optics on this road and see if it's the type of road that we need to put a yellow stripe down the middle on, not just keep putting dirt on it.
Okay. Any other comments?
My name's Travis Zollinger, and I'm also a neighbor of this property to the south. And I can testify that a bunch of their employees do use the south road. I pass them on my way to work, on my way home from work. There is quite a bit of traffic on that road. Some of my concerns, they have equipment running around unmanned doing things. I've got some little kids and whatnot that like to play behind the house and whatnot. That's a concern. Also, I own a couple businesses in the county, had my cup denied and rejected. And so I have a question to you guys, if I could either talk to you after this or whatever, of how to move forward in the county as a business owner who would like to do the same thing, but has had mine denied. So
Have you come here before?
years ago, and then
How long?
how long ago? Oh man, it was when we came and applied to build the building. It's on 3200 South, Zollinger Dairy, if you're familiar.
the machine
shop, yes, sir. Yeah, he comes out.
And that was before that was built?
Before it was built, we came and got all the approvals and everything for the building before we built it.
2000, wouldn't it, or?
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm not 100% sure of the year. It was last year that my cup got denied. And so my thoughts are, I'm on 3200 South, great road, and I paid you guys a lot of property tax over the years on my machines, a lot.
But you're saying your CUP last year got denied?
Yes, sir.
Did you come here?
No, I didn't even get notified of it.
Let's have that discussion after. I think
Yeah,
that's-
we can, but you.
Yeah, but, and those are my concerns with this one, and I would also like to figure out how to
So
move
none
forward.
of us can help you unless you're here after you've been to. Just go to the building department, third floor, and talk to them.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to just
Sure.
Okay, any other comments?
Just sounded like there were some numbers being thrown around, like growth of up to 500 employees. That was just what the Bear River Health approved our septic system up to. Our outlook for 7 to 10 years is that this facility will just become kind of our headquarters. We're opening offices in other states where most of our testing and things will be done. This will be somewhere for engineers to work, to do demonstrations for clients, things like that. It's not really a spot where we're going to be doing heavy-duty testing or anything like that, or growing to 500 employees. We can barely make what we've got out there work. So our max would be, what we requested in the CUP is 250, and then parking
One
spaces.
question I had. So it looks like it's actually a reduction from what your original CUP was approved for.
Quite a bit, you're right.
Your original one was 325 parking stalls there and potential employees. So this would be really a reduction in that with this new stuff.
It really is. It's much more reasonable in my mind, after looking at it with Sunrise. We've had all the contours shot, and the stormwater started to be worked on. So this seems doable, and it won't overdevelop the property, hopefully, which is I'm happy about. And we're more than willing to make improvements to that south road too, and the water tanks. That's all in our bids, in our scope of what it's going to take to get this done. So.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ari Watts. We have that property at 7852 West 600 North.
So you're soft at talking. Where again?
Ari Watt, right over here. Right there.
Okay, Ari
Across the
Watt.
creek there.
Okay.
My only comment would be on the signage that they asked to update. If there are regulations about light pollution, it's already kind of annoying to have to look out and see that light on at night, but I don't know if that's anything that's written into the code about them having to turn it off, or if there's limitations on how big it can be and how bright it can be.
Okay, yeah.
That's related to existing signs or future?
Both. I mean, like, it's already there, it is what it is, but he mentioned the sign changing, and so that was my only concern with that, is that it
So
not
that
be
is
worse
something
than
that
what's
we've
already
tried
there.
we have tried to focus on is lights that are down, least impact, but still accomplished. We just don't want to see them across the valley.
Dark sky compliant.
Yes.
We can put that in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners, thoughts? Oh, one more. Oh, sorry, didn't see you.
I'm Cassie Cox. I'm Darren Cox's wife. We own the property right next to them. I just want to emphasize how dangerous that lower road is right now. There are blind corners, and that road is so small that you can't, most people drive right down the middle of it because there's not a lot of room to pass. And on these blind corners, you don't see each other until the last second, and you're skidding, trying to avoid each other. And there's a lot more people on this road than people realize. You know, I mean, I drive it all the time, going to and from my home. And I can tell you at 4 o'clock, when ASI employees get off work, between 4 o'clock and 4:15, and honestly, nobody goes 20 miles an hour on that road. I've learned to just stay to the right as far as I can, go under 20, because people go barreling down that road. They don't stay at 20 miles an hour. And well, like I said, between 4 o'clock and 4:15, when they're done with work, they're barreling down that road. And if they're planning on adding, what, twice as many employees? And if we don't widen that road to where it's a decent road to travel on, there's going to be more accidents. There's already been many accidents on that road. So that road really needs to be improved if we're talking about adding that many more employees. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Connor, question for you on number 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, all the sign ones. Does that code 17-23-020, does that talk about lighting on signs at all?
I have to check. I'm not entirely sure.
So we could just add that, right? That if any lighting is associated with the signage, it's night sky compliant.
Yeah, we can add that as part of
We'll add that to all this. That would be at least my recommendation. We add that to any of the sign, and potentially even the buildings, right? Could be under that, right? If we look at the difference that Pisgah did when they changed their lights, I mean, that was night and day difference, right? We asked them to change it. A week later, it was done. You can still see it, but it's not nearly as bright as it was, so.
Would you like that to be its own independent condition and just apply to both the building and the sign?
Yeah, that'd probably be just as easy. Any lighting associated with the development. But yeah, other than that, I think, because in my mind, currently, like, we're reducing, they're already approved to go up to 325 parking spaces with no road improvements. If we approve this amendment, they'll have less parking spaces, and we can require the road improvements. So I think for safety issues, I think, to me at least, it makes sense to approve this, because there'll be a few less people approved for it, or parking spaces, and the road improvements are gonna happen for sure on part of it, and depending on the road study, potentially on the other part too, so, that, I mean, that's one of the big things we're supposed to do, right? Mitigate safety issue. I think by, this actually gives us better footing on that than we currently have under the CUP that's already approved on it.
Can I ask Matt a question? If we're talking the South Road, how do we have them improve the road where they don't own outside their property? Becomes difficult, does it not?
It does. That's where Andrew and I are getting to be really good friends.
We're getting smarter on that.
So, yeah. I know there's some potential development there, but I think, Nolan, even with our prescriptive use, there's probably things that can be done to improve and make that road safer if that traffic study warrants such.
I mean, I will say kudos to ASI, thank them for being a good employer in the county and what they do. They provide very good paying jobs and stuff, so I don't want to burden them, but I want to be aware of what we're talking about on this road.
In a way, at least widening it would be no different than the Nautica or the subdivision before. Because where we got a new CUP, it kind of starts everything over again, and if the access to their property is not within meet our road requirements, I think we have some leverage there.
But at the same time, we got to be careful who grunts that.
I agree.
Who grunts that, because private landowners are going to benefit too, aside from ASI.
And like, that's where the traffic study comes in.
Yep. That's where the traffic study, and again with Andrew and looking at laws and stuff, we try to make sure that we're being fair with everyone involved and trying to make sure people are paying their fair share of the impacts. There was some notes about the snowplow. This is a good example of, yeah, we're able to keep the one road a lot cleaner because it's paved, right? So we can send our normal, this one is a grader, so by the time the grader gets there, it is a couple hours later.
And it's the furthest one from the shop.
It's down the road a ways. That
Has to pack a lunch.
that limits the amount we can't use salt, so we can't melt that off. So you're ending up having a road that's not as safe, just because of the way you have to maintain gravel roads versus how you can maintain paved roads too. So everything they said is accurate, right? Our graders have hundreds of miles of roads with 3 graders. You're not going to get there at 8:30 in the morning. So
I would anticipate just the photos, the descriptions, and having been out there a while ago, some drainage ditches or cross some bar pits and stuff like that'll be a help also.
yep, it will.
Thank you, Matt. Okay.
If you guys are comfortable with it, I would be willing to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the conditional use permit amendment 1 for ASI with the 23 conditions.
Plus that one.
Oh, 24, what was the 4?
Dark sky compliance.
The what?
For the building. Dark sky compliance.
Oh, okay, and then the amendment that we already identified on the sign lightage, and then with the 3 conclusions.
Okay. Have a second for that.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. My agenda here. I think the next item is item number 9, the Honey Solar amendment.
So if the commission remembers, about 6 months ago, we had ENL Solar come in and approach us and asking to do a code amendment to allow for a large-scale solar facility. We presented a code amendment and got some feedback, and so now this is kind of the product of that, and after discussions with staff and the applicant, it's kind of where we're at. So instead of, this is basically just where we're at. We're going to add use-related definitions, so we're going to modify that to include utility facility commercial solar, utility facility battery storage. And so the one note, if you look at there and there's red, those are kind of notes from staff and just kind of the general direction that they want to move in. So in this case, they want to change utility facility commercial solar to utility facility industrial solar. Do you feel, and we're just kind of hoping for advice and direction on this one. Do you have any opinion on that?
So we never received a link, just this one page, right?
Yeah, the link was broken. The actual code is now in there. It should be in there.
More than that one page?
Yeah, it should be
5 pages.
5 pages. It's titled Item 9 Honey Solar Amendment.
Oh, before it, okay.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, I don't,
No particular opinion.
particular reason, commercial and industrial, they seem the same to me. They're both big solar facilities. It's not your backyard solar facility.
That's fair. So past that, we're also going to add utility facility commercial solar to 17.9. Basically in that, we would put it in the public infrastructure overlay. So if applicant wanted to build one of these, first they would need to rezone to have that overlay on the subject properties. That's where that's moving. And the big change from what you saw last time is now we're actually just going to create a chapter that's dedicated solely to these type of facilities. So kind of like mineral extraction. We feel that it's distinct enough that it deserves its own chapter. So that's kind of where that's moving. So site scheduled uses, basically that's also just describing, hey, you got to get the public infrastructure overlay. Site development standards is a bit weird just because it's held to the same standards as the underlying thing. So if you look there in red, you have the standards for A10, which most of this area is in. Then you can also see the standards for commercial and industrial. As I understand it, you can also create unique standards for chapter if Angie wants to come up.
Yeah, we have had some staff discussion about this, and I believe we're going to try and create development standards, including setbacks and screening requirements that are increased from the underlying zone. I think a 5-foot setback on side property lines and that for this type of use isn't sufficient, or 30 feet from a road. So we are planning and will continue to draft some development requirements that address those issues, including, these are going to cross property lines, so we're not going to hold them to, the property line itself. It would be probably the boundary of the development. But these are just kind of some of the things we've been discussing, and if you had any further comment or ideas. I also was at a conference recently. There was a panel on this talking about different types of solar projects, including ones that include agrovoltaics, so there's some grazing as part of it, or ecovoltaics, which do pollinator kind of plantings and stuff, so that adds a bit of thing. Some things that we hadn't really thought about before, but and then fire has some distinct concerns about separation between some of these uses. So I think we have a lot more to flesh out, but we just wanted to bring this back to you since it was up to the 6-month continuance time. But yeah, I think
Do you anticipate those setbacks being more in line with like commercial, industrial type stuff, or?
I would say even more, probably, just because we probably want to set back a little more, maybe some, because it is such a visual impact, that we might set back to be able to put berms or planting or, landscaping to kind of mitigate that a little bit. But it's an ever-changing field. The applicant is here. I'm sure he can talk a little bit about it too, but I believe that to mitigate some of the impacts, especially the visual, that we would want increased more than 30, especially if it's from a state highway or something. So,
Angie, have you when you guys have put these suggestions together, have you communicated with any of the other counties around us? The reason I ask, I've heard a little tweetering from Box Elder County that there's some things rolling over there.
Yeah,
and I just wouldn't want to have a standard over there greater than ours, so they run over here. I'm not saying I don't want solar.
Right.
But we just got to do it right.
Yeah, and that's something that we're doing, is looking at other codes to make sure we're consistent. And the great thing in planning is we're always borrowing from each other and want to be consistent with each other, so there's not huge discrepancies. But if they are missing something that we feel is important, we will address that and make it more stringent.
And even then, it comes back to property owner rights, but I think we can't negate the fact of the impact on neighboring properties.
Right. Yeah, and some of those panels, turn, so there could be glare issues. So we've just kind of done a basic overview of kind of how we would break down a chapter for that use type. But yeah, I think we still have a ways to go on this one. But yeah, again, just more to reintroduce it and to see if you guys had any strong opinions on what needed to happen. But with the setbacks, yeah, I think there's probably going to be a separate set of setbacks and development standards for this type of use, because it doesn't make sense to use the underlying.
But even what you just brought up too, there may not be able to be a one size fits all if they've got panels that just roll up and down versus if they're turning.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to look at different scenarios.
Right. Yeah, like I said, they can tilt.
We don't mind if we put them out in the west and they blow on Logan City. But we don't want it anywhere else.
Yeah, and so that's why we just, want to make sure that we have a clearly defined standard so that, we're mitigating as much as possible, as much as we can, forecast and foresee, so. But, again, we needed to bring it back to refresh your memories, and then see if in the meantime you'd had any strong opinions or things that you wanted to include in the code.
I do like this approach better than just adding those few paragraphs that they initially recommended in our existing code. I think this makes more sense, and then we can.
Yeah, it is such a unique use type.
Work on it from here when you bring a little more complete draft to us.
Yeah.
You're not asking us for approval, good.
Yeah. That's just a discussion.
Can I ask how the overlay works? For instance, I think the guy presented that, hey, we put this on farm ground, it's there 20 years and we pull it off, can the overlay come back off then too?
Yeah, I think that could be part of we added a section on reclamation, but I rephrased it as restoration. But I think that could be a component of that where, yeah, there's that expiration date for the rezone. I'm not sure legally how we could do it, but.
It would be interesting to explore that because that was the whole part.
Right.
Put it on agriculturally, lease it out. But then how does that affect the agricultural land from a taxation standpoint?
Take it out of Greenbelt, no
Yeah,
question.
it's out of Greenbelt for this.
Because it'd have to go to commercial.
Yeah, and I believe, and the applicant can correct me, but I believe they've talked about in their agreement that they're actually going to pay those rollback taxes.
Yeah, I can answer your question.
Yes, please come up and.
And don't be offended by my comment joking about Logan City.
Oh, no,
But,
keep doing it, it's fine.
but it's,
I'm from here, I don't like
all I'm suggesting is everything's gotta be taken into consideration because we
Yeah.
have the benches.
Yeah.
And them people aren't gonna wanna wake up every morning with that.
Well, that's why
I wouldn't either.
That setback's not gonna make a difference on the visual.
Yeah, the setback's nothing to do with the visual.
Yeah, I've been working, Cole Stalker, by the way. I've been working with Connor pretty closely on some of the things to add to this as well that are pretty standard, but we do elsewhere. We do a glint glare analysis, and so we'll make sure that we minimize the impacts in that way. So we'll be well aware of what can be seen where in the valley before we even move forward on that. Setbacks, I think, is a great idea. I think that I don't see you guys seeing a lot of these projects coming through. There's not a lot of line capacity here. You might see one or two in the next few years maybe that are smaller. But I think it's a good idea to have a full chapter where you're addressing all these and requiring some things that I've seen elsewhere. And I've had, Connor had quite a few things that I think would be good here for sure. So, as far as like view screens and these kind of things, it might need to be a case by case basis, in my opinion, just based on the economics, because they're really expensive things. And so if you require them on every project, it might not work. Whereas here, maybe there's one side that needs a view screen, but maybe the rest aren't impacting anybody. We try to site our projects in a place that is not too close to houses for that reason. So there will be people on the hill that, yeah, are going to be able to see it in some capacity, and that's what that glint glare analysis is for, to try to see what that impact is and how we can minimize it with our design.
Have you addressed the overlay on any other issues? Meaning
This
after the
is
life of
new.
that, you change it?
Yeah, this is new, the overlay zone. I haven't seen this elsewhere. But we do write in restoration language. We put down a bond in year 15, and so there's money there to restore the land back to the way it was. As what you guys do with the overlay afterwards, I'm not sure. I haven't worked with that before. The taxes, though, we have it built into our lease that basically landowners are continuing to pay Greenbelt like normal, and we'll just pay the difference in the taxes to the county.
Cool. It'd be interesting to talk with staff on how you've done, if you've not done an overlay, what you've done in previous places, so that.
It's mostly a rezone to a type that's allowable that I've worked with elsewhere. Whether you rezone it to industrial or commercial, and I'm not so sure what the difference between those two words is either in this, but yeah, I haven't seen an overlay zone like this before. We work with giant wind projects and this kind of things. That doesn't usually happen. Either it's an allowable use in agriculture in other counties, or they'll have to rezone the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Yep. We got 2 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, good thing we went for 30.
Yeah, no, I guess so. We're not fast enough. All right. So where do we go from here?
Well, you go ahead and tell them what's due after next month.
I don't want to jinx it because every time I said, oh, it's just this or just that, it usually gets pretty bad. 2 rezones and a subdivision.
Okay.
What it's looking like. So.
Okay.
Is there any chance you guys can do, what's the largest lot subdivision we've done in the county? I was trying to think of that one. Do you remember?
Probably the RU2 up on the hill, isn't it?
Are you talking RU2 or just big ones?
Big ones.
Gotta be Petersboro, have to be.
But that was done, how many years ago?
Yeah, it was quite a few.
10 or shortly thereafter.
Wait.
Before that?
Are you talking about Petersboro that has the mile-long subdivision?
Yes.
That was done pre-2008, because it was done before I was.
And that was done before our changes in code, so I'm just wondering, since then, what's been the largest one? Does that make sense? 'Cause
And before that was also Estancia. Well, we're about 2010.
How many's that?
Which one do you?
There's been larger, they're Creekside, in Smithfield, just west of Smithfield, they
Yeah,
rezoned.
Wayne Williams, but that
Yeah.
got milked out over.
That I think is
multiple
about
phases.
about 16. And these two upcoming subdivision applications are both 20 lot subdivisions.
This is almost double what we've ever seen before.
Right, yeah. And these are in A10, they're not in the higher zone, so.
Interesting.
So yeah, besides the one South Nautica, there's a couple more, so.
You're like it up on the hill than on the farm.
Yeah, and I would just throw out as a reminder that the Utah APA does have a planning conference coming up in Logan, May 7th through 9th. In your folder, I did just put a flyer for a free, just like citizen planner track for a Thursday afternoon that our countywide planner has helped put together. So if you want to register for that, it is free of charge, and it would get you most of your
Hey, is there-
annual requirements.
Is there any way we can plead again with you guys
Mm-hmm.
to get us our information sooner? Incomplete, getting it on Tuesday and after
Mm-hmm.
is impossible to prepare for thoroughly.
Every month, we commit to doing better, and we commit again, I'm sorry. But yeah, we do apologize, we will do better.
We used to get a printed packet though, like on Thursday, a week before. And since we've gone electronic, it just keeps rolling closer and closer.
The printed packet actually was sent out on Friday afternoons, but yeah.
Your office, we
The main
understand.
packet
but-
was Friday, but then there was other stuff that came late.
Maybe we look at the application process and say, hey, it's gonna take 2
If you're not done, you're gonna go to the next month.
Yeah.
Exactly, 'cause
That's what we gotta do, because you're in the same boat we are.
Right.
Because we're telling these part-time guys who are full-time workers, take some time to read this, and we need to be very much.
Puts
on
us
top
to
of
sleep
this.
at night.
Literally.
Put me to sleep.
Eleven-
That's
eleven
what makes me
o'clock.
sleep, when I read this.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
Angie.
Oh, no, you're fine, and yeah, I'm sorry, we will try again, so.
One last thing before we, is this your last meeting?
It should be, yeah.
What?
So we really wanna.
I just have talked to Dave Zook and gave him some names. I don't know whether that's come back to you.
Well, do you leave in May?
Yeah.
We really wanna recognize Commissioner Parker. He's
Yes.
been here for over 8 years.
12.
Is it 12?
12 is more than 8, yeah. So.
That's still more than 8.
That means 14.
Well, thank you for your service,
But
thank you.
It's been
you're
fun.
you're a dang good man. And you've really helped us.
From the council, I will say we appreciate Lane and all of you very, very much. I mean, you guys take it on the chin a lot of times, so thank you. Thanks,
Yeah, we
Lane.
pass on some we don't appreciate, I know, but.
I wish we had known we'd have made you do the opening remarks and a speech, but yeah.
That's why he didn't let you know.
But I've got your,
Okay, thank you for your service, yes, all right. And good luck on your next adventures.
Yeah, should be fun.
Go.
18.
Do we need to close it or?
Good man.
Make a motion to
Close the meeting?
close the meeting.
Okay. You second that?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?